Chapter 44-27. This type of person is definitely an important part of the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. If we go after him now, let's not even talk about whether or not we'll succeed. Even if we succeed, everyone will suspect us. Hiss! Wang Baiqiao sucked in a breath of cold air from the pain, but he was still unwilling. But Uncle C, we can't just let him go like this. Let him go. Boundless C raised his eyebrows and said in an unfathomable tone, "Humph. No matter what, this person can't be underestimated. We have to investigate this person's background first. I'll leave this matter to you. Remember, don't let a third person know." Yes, this subordinate will obey. Wang Baiqiao was overjoyed and immediately accepted the order. Since Boundless C had given him a mission, it meant that his life was safe for now. He immediately retreated. Lingwan, humph, no matter where you come from, now that you're here, even if you're a dragon, you'll have to coil up. Even if you're a tiger, you'll have to crouch. Boundless C's killing intent flashed across his face. What Boundless C didn't know was that while he was having Wang Baiqiao investigate Lingwan in a tavern not far from his 4C's escort agency, the heads of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency were gnashing their teeth in anger at this long name. Lingwan, it's this Lingwan, the main culprit behind my son's death. If I don't cut this person into 1,000 pieces, I swear I'm not a human. In the room, a bearded man wearing a gray cloak said through gritted teeth. This person's aura was monstrous and majestic. He was the infamous leader of the Poison Eye mercenaries, Cheng Haonan. There were two other men in the room. The one on the left had thick eyebrows and a pair of leopard eyes. His fierce appearance was unforgettable. He was the head escort of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, Long Kiba. The person sitting on Cheng Haonan's right had a pair of triangular yin-yang eyes. His face was a strange greenish-yellow color that made people shudder. He was the mysterious military advisor of the Poison Eye mercenary group, the #1 person under Cheng Haonan, Wu Baoyong. Ever since the Dragon Boat Escort Agency and the Poison Eye mercenary group had joined hands, both parties had become one. It was a name that caused others to tremble with fear, and it seemed to be on the verge of becoming the strongest power in the verdant Arc territorial waters. Thus, the three of them naturally came together and became the top trio that controlled the fates of their subordinates. In this year's South Continent Escort Agency Grand Assembly, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency had come with great momentum. They wanted to replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and become one of the top 5 escort agencies in the South Continent. This was the lowest goal that the three of them had set. However, after just 2 rounds of competition, this goal had already become a joke. Due to Lin Yi's existence, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had accumulated 300 points and occupied the top spot. Even the 4C's Escort Agency was left far behind. As for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, although they had joined the Poison Eye mercenary group's elite soldiers, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency was not as good as before. Their strength had indeed skyrocketed. They had obtained 90 points in the first round, so they could be regarded as quite a dark horse. Unfortunately, they were the same as the other 29 escort agencies in the second round. They had not obtained a single point. In just 2 rounds of the competition, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had left them in the dust by 210 points. It was such a huge disparity between them. If they still wanted to replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, they would only be lying to themselves. The atmosphere in the room could not help but become rather heavy as they listened to Cheng Haonan's bellow. As the chief escort of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, Long Kiba had originally been filled with ambition this time. But now that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, or more accurately, Lin Yi, had doused him with a bucket of cold water, he obviously was not in a good mood. As for Cheng Haonan, he had already placed the blame for his son's death on Lin Yi. He obviously knew that the true culprit behind his son's death was the Divine Nun of the East Sea, one of the 3 pillars of the Morningstar Academy. However, was he bold enough to find the Divine Nun of the East Sea for revenge? Of course not. Even if Cheng Haonan was given 10 times the courage, he would never be so bold. The Poison Eye mercenaries could not even be regarded as invincible in the Verdant Arc Sea realm, and they could not even be regarded as a first-rate organization across the many seas of the South Continent. If they stood up against a colossus like the Morning Star Academy, what else would they be doing other than seeking death? By then, their only fate would be being crushed to death with a single finger. It would only take a few minutes. As a result, not only did Chung Haonan not dare to resent the divine nun of the East Sea, he did not even dare to have any thoughts about Huang Xiaodao, the divine nun of the East Sea's direct disciple. Naturally, all of his hatred was transferred to Lin Yi. Even though Lin Yi had not personally killed Chung Haonan, it was all because of him, so it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the main culprit. Who would Chung Haonan kill if not him? If Lin Yi were not the honorary vice-chairman of the Hong Merchant Guild, and if he were not close to Huang Xiaodao, the divine nun of the East Sea's direct disciple, Chung Haonan probably would not have been able to hold himself back a long time ago, and would have taken revenge regardless of the consequences. It was exactly because of these two sensitive identities that Chung Haonan did not dare to take action openly and could only look for opportunities in secret. However, Lin had either been holed up in the Hong Merchant Guild or the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency recently. However, Lin Yi was either holed up in the Hong Chamber of Commerce or the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Regardless of which one he was in, it was easier said than done to sneak in and kill someone. Chung Haonan wasn't someone who would swallow insults like this, but Lin Yi, his son's death. He had no choice. He'd had to endure it, even if he didn't want to. He'd been holding it in until today. Kill him. I'll definitely kill him. Chung Haonan could no longer endure it. He had a ferocious expression as if he wanted to skin someone alive. He turned to look at Wu Baoyang and said, "Military advisor, quickly think of a way to kill Ling." That's right. Ling Yi is a great threat to us. If we don't get rid of him, it will be extremely difficult for us to replace the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Long Kiba nodded in agreement. In just 2 rounds of the competition, Ling Yi had already helped the Equal Heaven Escort Agency obtain a total of 260 points, forcefully becoming the focus of the entire competition. From this, it could be seen how strong Ling Yi was. If he were to continue like this, who knew what kind of performance he would have in the later rounds? Don't worry. Wu Baoyang glanced at the two of them and said with a disdainful expression, "This South Continent's Escort Agency Conference is actually a good opportunity to get rid of this person. Don't be fooled by his glory now. When he meets me, he will be dead." Of course. How can a mere Golden Core expert be a match for you? Military advisor. Chung Haonan and Long Kiba nodded at the same time. Although they were both proud and arrogant people, they acknowledged Wu Baoyang's strength. In fact, it could even be said that they were quite fearful of him. This conference has given us a justifiable opportunity to kill him. Chapter 44-28. Oh, when the time comes, even the Hong Chamber of Commerce and East Continent's Morning Star Academy won't be able to say anything. Wu Baoyang laughed coldly, then said, "The only problem is that I won't be able to meet this person in the competition. If they couldn't kill him in the competition, they would be back to their previous predicament. They didn't dare to kill him in the open, and they couldn't kill him in the dark either. That is indeed a big problem." Long Kiba frowned and said, "But there's no point in thinking about it now. We can only wait and see what the situation is like." If his Dragon Boat Escort Agency was one of the 5 major escort agencies, they might be able to use their authority as judges to play some tricks and arrange for the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to go against his Dragon Boat Escort Agency. Unfortunately, they didn't have any authority to speak. All right then, we'll let this kid live for 2 more days. Chung Haonan was unwilling, but he had no other choice. He could only wait and see and take things one step at a time. The next day, the South Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference was held in Cold Magic Plaza. The 5 judges from the 5 major escort agencies walked up to the high platform one after another. However, this time, Qi Mingyuan was the center of attention. After all, based on the current score, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency was ahead of everyone else. It was very likely that they would take first place in this year's competition. In comparison, The host, Boundless Sea, wasn't as high-spirited as he was yesterday. There was a strong sense of unwillingness hidden between his brows, but it was much more restrained than before. Now, I will announce the third round of the competition, the test of an escort's loyalty. Boundless Sea announced. Test of an escort's loyalty? Everyone was confused when they heard this, and they looked at each other in dismay. There was a lot of discussion. Many of them were familiar with the South Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference. Some of them had participated in it several times. The previous 2 rounds of the competition, whether it was the escort robbery or the dangerous sea voyage, were all new, but they were essentially old wine in a new bottle. There had been similar events in previous conferences, so they weren't too surprised. However, this test of an escort's loyalty was a completely new competition. He had never even heard of it before. In this round, you don't need to kill each other, nor do you need to take risks. What you need to do is very simple. Just nod your head. Of course, you can also choose not to nod your head. Boundless Sea continued. When he said that, everyone present was even more confused. The more he said, the more mysterious it was. I just need to nod my head? What kind of competition was this? Before I explain the rules to everyone, I would like to express my gratitude to all the major chambers of commerce who have come to watch the event on behalf of the South Continent Escort Agency. All of the merchant guilds present will contribute to the funding, and we will provide a priceless escort for the match. Boundless Sea cupped his hands towards the representatives of the merchant guilds. Escort? Everyone looked at each other thoughtfully, combined with the name of the test of loyalty of escorts. Those with a slightly faster brain could more or less guess what was going on. As we all know, many of the escorts entrusted to the escort agencies are sent to different places. In particular, the precious goods of the merchant guilds are often priceless. If the escorts have selfish motives, they might become greedy and take the goods for themselves. I'm sure everyone has heard of this sort of thing, right? Boundless Sea asked everyone. Everyone nodded their heads. In the escort agency business, the most important thing was trust. Only by gaining the public's trust could one gain a foothold. However, the Southern Continent Sea had always been a chaotic place. There were people from all walks of life everywhere. There were naturally such people in the escort agencies. There was no lack of cases where a rat's droppings spoiled the whole pot of soup. For example, when the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's large escort had been robbed, the rumor circulating internally was that there had been an insider colluding with pirates. If he hadn't cleared his name, perhaps he would still be carrying this groundless accusation. The human heart was unfathomable. There was no lack of black sheep everywhere. Even the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, one of the 5 great escort agencies, was like this. There was no need to talk about the other escort agencies. Embezzlement was nothing new. So, in order to purify the industry and set a new standard, our Southern Continent Escort Agency Conference has the responsibility and need to set up a competition to test the human heart. Boundless Sea didn't miss this opportunity to shout out the slogan. Then, he continued, in the third round, each escort agency will send 10 escorts to be tested. The escorts provided by the merchant guilds will all be placed in front of them one by one. As long as they nod, they can easily take them away, free of charge. Hearing this, the crowd burst into an uproar. They were all interested. Just a nod, and they could take away a priceless escort? Was there really such a good thing in the world? However, there were also people who questioned this. This so-called competition to test the human heart was actually just a show. Even if the contestants could take away the escorts for free, the various escort agencies were watching from behind. Who would dare do such a thing? If they took away the escorts, it would be the same as smearing the reputation of their own escort agency. Needless to say, the consequences would be obvious. Compared to the escorts, no matter how you looked at it, their lives were more important. They were all smart people, not idiots. Let me add one more thing. After the contestants take away the escorts, the escort agency they belong to will definitely not pursue the matter. This is the joint promise of our Southern Continent Escort Agency Conference. Anyone who dares to go against them will be our enemy. Boundless Sea said firmly. This sentence immediately dispelled everyone's doubts. With this, the contestants would have nothing to worry about. At most, they would not be able to continue working in the escort agency after they returned. However, they would not be restricted from leaving. At the very least, their personal safety would be guaranteed. With such a premise as a guarantee, the so-called test of the loyalty of the escorts this time was truly worth watching. Through this, they could more or less see how much control each agency had over the escorts under them. If the escorts were not loyal enough and did not have strong self-control, it was easy for them to give themselves away in this segment and bring shame to the agency they belonged to. Although this was the first time this competition was unique, it couldn't be denied that this sort of competition to test the human heart was very eye-catching. It should also be very practical. As for how the points are calculated, it's very simple. Every escort is worth 10 points. If all 10 escorts from an escort agency remain, then they will receive 100 points. For every escort that leaves, 10 points will be deducted. The remaining points will be the final score for this round of the competition, Boundless Sea announced in a clear voice. Chapter 44:29. Before he finished speaking, all the people in charge of the escort agencies, including Chi Wen-han, were already busy selecting their soldiers. At first glance, the difficulty of the third round was much lower than the previous two rounds where lives were at stake. However, in reality, it was the exact opposite. The 100 points were not easy to obtain. After all, the human heart was the most difficult thing to grasp. The slightest mistake could cause the 100 points to slip through one's fingers. Since it was a test of the human heart, if they wanted to obtain all 100 points, they had to do their homework on the selection of soldiers. Since threats could not be used, they could only carefully select the 10 most trustworthy people and reward them handsomely to ensure that nothing would go wrong. However, before they could do so, two people had appeared beside the people in charge of each escort agency. One was a staff member of the Grand Assembly, and the other was a supervisor from the various chambers of commerce who had nothing to do with the Grand Assembly. To ensure fairness, before the competition officially begins, no escort agency is allowed to use threats or promises of rewards to influence the escorts under their command. They must face this test with a normal heart, the two supervisors said in unison. Chi Wen-han was stunned when he heard that. He turned his head to look around and saw that the same two supervisors were standing beside each of the other escort agencies. It seemed that the Grand Assembly had already prepared for this. All right, Chi Wen-han could only nod at the two supervisors and swallow back the reward that was on the tip of his tongue. He could only rely on his understanding of the crowd and pick out the 10 most trustworthy escorts. Fortunately, he spent a lot of time with everyone and was more familiar with the escorts under his command. If it was just picking out 10 from the middling soldiers, he was still relatively confident. However, before Chi Wen-han could start selecting, the two supervisors suddenly said, "In order to truly reflect the situation of each escort agency, all the contestants in this round of the competition must be chosen at random." Huh? How is this random? Chi Wen-han was instantly stunned. It's very simple. You'll provide us with a list of the escorts, and we'll remove all the heads, deputy heads, and relatives related to the heads. Then, we'll randomly pick 10 people from the remaining escorts, the two supervisors explained. The head of escorts, deputy head of escorts, and their relatives were closely related to the escort agency. They would not be tempted to participate in the competition. If they were allowed to participate in the competition, this competition that was designed to test their loyalty would be meaningless. It would not reflect the true situation of the escort agency. After all, usually, when there was a real escort, how many times was the escort leader personally escorting them? Ordinary escorts were the main force of escorting the goods. Only if they could withstand the test would they be able to represent an escort agency in passing the test. Apart from them, anyone else would only make the test meaningless. Chi Wen-han smiled bitterly. This kind of random selection method really didn't give him any chance at all, even though he had confidence in the escorts under his command. Although he was confident in the escorts under his command, there were so many people in the agency. Even their abilities were uneven. Young Master Chi, Please give us the name list as soon as possible. Don't make things difficult for us, urged the two supervisors. All right, I'll give it to you right away. Chi Wen-han nodded helplessly. He could only fill in the names of the escorts under his command one by one in front of the two supervisors. This was the first time in history that the so-called test of loyalty among escorts was being held. He had never encountered a competition like this before. Furthermore, the rules were so well controlled that he could not think of any loopholes to exploit. He could only follow the rules obediently. After a while, a list of escorts was handed over to the two supervisors. Just as they had requested, the names on the list were all ordinary escorts. There was no head, deputy head, or relative. Even Lin, he was not on the list because he was an honorary head, no matter how you looked at it. His status could not possibly be among the ranks of ordinary escorts. Chi Wen-han originally thought that the two of them would start randomly selecting people. However, after the two of them received the list, they took out another list from their pockets and carefully compared it one by one in front of Chi Wen-han and the others. Seeing this scene, Chi Wen-han didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He clearly saw that on the list of escorts that the other party had taken out, there was an annotation behind each person's name. It was obvious whether they were ordinary escorts or if they had special backgrounds, such as the head escort or assistant escort. Chi Wen-han sucked in a breath of cold air and secretly rejoiced that he had not played any tricks just now. Otherwise, he would have been exposed on the spot. The South Continent Escort Agency Gala had always prided itself on being fair and just. Cheating during the competition had always been strictly investigated. If it was really discovered on the spot, there would be no hope of getting any points for the round. In fact, the points would be deducted, and the escort agency would be heavily punished. After the two supervisors finished comparing the names on the list and confirmed that there were no omissions, they numbered each name. At the same time, they took out a small basket from behind their backs. The basket was filled with pre-prepared numbers. Whoever was picked would be the one. This continued until the list of 10 participating escorts was complete. At the same time, the other 3 escort agencies were also experiencing the same thing. In a short period of time, the 32 escort agencies had all completed the list of participants. The third round of the escort agency loyalty competition had officially begun. Each of the 32 escort agencies sent out 10 escorts, and an entire 320 escorts formed a large circle on Devil Cold Square, whereas at the center of them was a pile of enormous treasure chests that had been prepared beforehand that were neatly piled up. The size of every single treasure chest was almost the height of a person, and even if they didn't know what was hidden within it, such a size still caused one's eyes to be extremely envious. It wasn't just the participating escorts. Even the spectators couldn't help but raise their heads in anticipation when they saw the treasure chests. Even though Boundless Sea had already said that each of these treasure chests was priceless, no one knew exactly how priceless they were. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, the 5 referees, led by Boundless Sea, slowly walked to the side of the treasure chests. They casually pulled out one of the treasure chests and immediately attracted everyone's attention. You're all very curious as to what's inside these treasure chests, right? I can tell you right now. What's inside are none other than spirit jades. Boundless Sea announced loudly. Spirit jades. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. Even though all sorts of heavenly treasures were definitely priceless, even if they were of the same value, the impact of heavenly treasures couldn't compare to the impact of actual spirit jades. It made people's mouths go dry. Chapter 44:30. Head Escort High. How many spirit jades are in the chests? Someone in the crowd yelled, drawing a wave of laughter. However, it also piqued everyone's curiosity. Everyone wanted to know the answer to this question. Whether it was the spectators, the people in charge of the various escort agencies, or even the randomly selected participating escorts, they were all very interested in this question. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. As the old saying goes, there is no such thing as loyalty in this world. Loyalty only exists because there isn't enough bargaining chips for betrayal. The number of spirit jades in these treasure chests directly determined the choice of the participating escorts. If it was an inestimably astronomical number, then all 32 escorts would be wiped out. But if it was an insignificant number, then this test of peoples would be meaningless. The key to this round's competition was how to set this number. Everyone wants to know, right? That's too simple. These treasure chests all have the same amount of spirit jades. We just need to randomly pick one out and count it in front of everyone. Then we'll know. Boundlessy laughed, then called over 10 workers from the side and ordered, in order to satisfy everyone's curiosity, count all the spirit jades in this treasure chest. Yes, the staff members immediately did as they were told. They surrounded the treasure chest that Boundless Sea had randomly pulled out and opened it in front of everyone. The entire crowd burst into an uproar. It was filled to the brim with spirit jades. Less than or equal to the 10 staff members began counting the spirit jades in the treasure chest at the same time. As everyone watched, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. The test has already begun. I'm afraid this test won't be so easy to pass. Lenny couldn't help but shake his head and laugh at this scene. Counting spirit jades in front of everyone didn't seem like anything special, but the impact it had on everyone present was incomparable. It could be said to be incomparable, especially for those participating escorts. Originally, they might have been able to resist the temptation, but as time dragged on, they could only watch helplessly as the spiritual jades piled up higher and higher. This temptation was not something that ordinary people could resist. During the entire process, anyone who had the slightest bit of selfishness would eventually be convinced by the devil's incessant enticement and self-persuasion and walk towards the opposite of loyalty. As time dragged on, the chances of betrayal would increase. Brother Ling is right. If this goes on, it's hard to say how many people will be able to resist the temptation in the end. Chi Wenhan nodded with a wry smile. We lose people in every round of the competition. After participating in this year's South Continent Escort Agency Grand Gathering, who knows how many more people the agency will lose? Needless to say, in the first 2 rounds, every escort agency had put human lives on the line. But now, in the 3rd round, it seemed to be quiet. There was no danger to speak of. In fact, the number of casualties caused in the end was probably more than the previous 2 rounds combined. After all, these participating escorts, if they couldn't resist the temptation and nodded their heads, this meant that they would have to leave the escort agency in the future. For every escort agency, leaving was equivalent to death. In fact, the final result was the same. They would all be reduced in combat strength. The 10 of them took the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Only then did he finally finish counting all the spirit jades in the treasure chest. Adding them up, there were exactly 50,000 spirit jades. For most of the people present, this was an astronomical figure. They might not be able to save up such a huge amount of wealth, even if they worked hard for decades. Many people's mouths were already dry from watching. They even wished they could be one of the participating escorts, casually nodding their heads and taking away a whole 50,000 spirit jades. Moreover, there was also the promise of the 5 major escort agencies that they wouldn't have to bear any risks. Where else in the world could they find such a good deal? It's actually 50,000 spirit jades. Chi Wenhan was instantly stunned. The expressions of the other escorts at the side were more or less subtle. In the previous 2 rounds of the competition, they had to fight with their lives on the line. The best outcome for the participants was that even if they were lucky enough not to die, they would at least be half crippled. Even so, the reward offered by Chi Wenhan was only 50,000 spirit jades. But now, with the same amount of 50,000 spirit jades, the participating escorts didn't have to do anything and didn't have to bear any risks. All they had to do was nod their heads, and they could easily get what they wanted. It would be strange if they weren't tempted by this. Even the other escorts on the field felt a bit unbalanced. A meat pie had fallen from the sky. Why couldn't such a good thing happen to them? All right, everyone knows what they need to know. Now, it's up to the participating escorts to make their own choices. Boundless Sea faced the crowd and loudly announced, "Listen to my command. Those participating escorts who want to take this 50,000 spirit jades and live happily ever after, take 3 steps forward. Those participating escorts who don't want this 50,000 spirit jades and continue to be loyal to the escort agency, take 3 steps back. Begin. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Everyone's gazes swept back and forth between the 320 escorts. No matter who made the slightest movement, they would immediately become the center of attention. At this moment, the ones who felt the most pressure weren't the participating escorts on the field, but Chi Wen-han and the other representatives of the various escort agencies. After all, the participating escorts faced 50,000 spirit jades. Whether they took it or not, they only needed to consider their own gains and losses. They only needed to clearly weigh whether or not this 50,000 spirit jades was worth betraying the escort agency, and then make a decision. However, Chi Wen-han and the other representatives of the escort agencies had to consider the gains and losses of the entire escort agency. If they performed well in this round and only a few escorts left, that would be fine. But if a large number of escorts left, it would be troublesome. When that time came, the danger they would face wouldn't be as simple as losing members in battle. The more thorny problem was that the entire escort agency's reputation would take a huge hit. Reputation was the foundation of an escort agency's survival. This included the 5 great escort agencies with the most solid foundations. For any escort agency, if they lost the public's trust, it would be a disaster. Chi Wen-han stared closely at the movements of the participating escorts, especially the 10 from his own escort agency. He was so nervous that cold sweat dripped down his forehead. Based on his understanding of these 10 people, the majority of them shouldn't be much of a problem. But the remaining few, it was hard to say. After all, the temptation of 50,000 spirit jades couldn't be underestimated. Finally, under everyone's attention, someone made the first choice. It was a participating escort from a small escort agency. He took 3 steps forward. Okay, you can go. Boundless Sea immediately had a staff member hand over a treasure chest to this person. Chapter 44:31. This person opened the treasure chest and counted the spirit jades. He could no longer contain his ecstasy. He did not even look at his former escort agency, as he happily carried the treasure chest away. The crowd at the side was so envious that they drooled. The ones who were even more moved were the participating escorts. Before this, everyone was still worried about their pride and was too embarrassed to take the lead. But now that someone had broken the stalemate, the pressure was much less. Almost at the same time, a large group of people hurriedly took 3 steps forward, each of them looking at the treasure chests anxiously. It was as if they were afraid that they would fall behind and there would not be enough treasure chests for so many people to share. Such eagerness immediately caused an uproar. Out of the 32 escort agencies, several of them had been completely wiped out. 10 of their escorts had all defected. The expressions of the people in charge of these agencies were as pale as dead ashes, as if their parents had died. They had been completely wiped out. This had completely destroyed the reputation that these agencies had built up with so much difficulty. The people in charge of the various chambers of commerce who were watching from the side all put these escort agencies on their blacklists. No matter what had happened in the past, at least from now on, they would never dare to work with these escort agencies again. In a short period of time, more than half of the 320 participating escorts had left. Even those that remained were not necessarily completely loyal. Many of them were still hesitant between loyalty and 50,000 spirit jades. It was just that they could not make a decision at this moment. After a while, another group of people finally took a step forward after a period of struggle. These 3 bastards. Chi Wen-han looked at the 3 escorts from his agency. When he saw their shameless behavior as they carried the treasure chests, he immediately gritted his teeth in anger. His expression was extremely ugly, and he wanted nothing more than to rush forward and stomp these ungrateful bastards to death. All this time, Chi Wen-han had been in charge as the young master of the escort agency. He had always treated the escorts under his command very well, especially during the South Continent Escort Agency's Grand Festival. The bounty offered by the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was the highest among all the escorts. Even the Four Seas Escort Agency did not offer such a high bounty. Even so, 3 of their escorts had escaped. The hardest thing to control in the world was the human heart. This saying was not false at all. There were people who were extremely righteous, but there were also people who were ungrateful. In comparison, the latter often outnumbered the former. Brother Chi, you don't have to be like this. It's not a good thing for them to leave at this time anyway. It's not necessarily a bad thing for the escort agency if the 3 of them leave. If they stay here, who knows what kind of trouble they'll cause in the future. Just take it easy, comforted Lin Yi. Brother Ling, you're right. None of those who left are good people. However, I still can't swallow this resentment. Chi Wen-han was still indignant, but Boundless Sea had already announced that the escort agency could not settle accounts with the participants. No matter how furious he was, he didn't dare to do anything to these 3 people. Lin Yi smiled and didn't say anything else, at least from the looks of things. At least for now, he had to swallow this resentment even if he couldn't, unless he found another way to vent it. In the end, the 3rd round of the escort agency's loyalty test came to an end. 32 escort agencies, 320 participating escorts. They either left with 50,000 spirit jades or stayed behind with pure sincerity. All of them had made their own choices. 3 people from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency left, leaving behind 7 people. In the end, they had obtained 70 points. Compared to the smaller escort agencies that had easily been wiped out, this result was much better. It wasn't perfect, but it was passable. However, it wasn't just Qi Wen-han. Even Qi Mingyuan's expression had become increasingly gloomy and unsightly. Of the 5 great escort agency, none of the other 4 had left. All of them had a perfect performance of 100 points. Only the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had only obtained 70 points. Faced with such an awkward situation, how could the father and son pair be happy? In the end, the 5 Great Escort Agency was still the 5 Great Escort Agency. Their foundations were not to be underestimated. The escorts under their command were loyal to them, and they had a strong sense of belonging to them. It wasn't something that any of the second-rate escort agencies present could compare to. In this regard, even a newly promoted Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was far from being good enough. The biggest difference between a traditional powerhouse and a nouveau riche is their foundation. As long as their foundation is there, a traditional powerhouse can stand tall forever. But for a nouveau riche, it's hard to say. Boundless Sea smiled meaningfully. The heads of the other 5 great escort agency also smiled knowingly when they heard this. Their gazes filled with ridicule fell on Qi Mingyuan. In the previous competition, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had been in the limelight, trampling all of the traditional powerhouses under their feet. They had been suppressing their anger the entire time, but now they had finally regained some face. Being ridiculed to his face like this, Qi Mingyuan's face immediately turned ashen, but he couldn't say anything. After all, it was a fact that the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's foundation wasn't strong enough. If they offended the other 4 traditional powerhouses just for the sake of bragging, then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. On the other side, Qi Wen-han had given each of the escorts who had chosen to stay a bear hug. However, he discovered that everyone had different expressions on their faces. Looking at the 3 fellows not far away who had happily received 50,000 spirit jades, their gazes were filled with regret, unwillingness, and even regret. I hereby announce that for the 7 escorts who chose to stay, in order to repay your loyalty to the agency, each of you will receive 50,000 spirit jades as a reward. Qi Wen-han suddenly announced in a loud voice. At the same time, he glanced at the 3 men with a cold smile. Our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency will never mistreat our own people. Every contribution you make will ultimately be rewarded handsomely. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd around him couldn't help but burst into an uproar. The 7 escorts, who had originally been feeling a little conflicted, were instantly overjoyed and cheered loudly. When the three escorts who had received 50,000 spirit jades heard Chi Wonhan's words, they were immediately dumbfounded. Each of them wanted to slap their own mouths. Even their intestines were about to turn green with regret. Damn it, if they had known that they would receive such a reward by staying, why would they have taken those 3 steps forward? Although the Great Assembly had strictly stipulated that escort agencies couldn't settle scores after the competition, after receiving the 50,000 spirit jades, they would definitely not be able to continue working as an escort agency anymore. They would carry the stain of ingratitude. Not only would the Heavens Equal Escort Agency not want them, but all the other escort agencies would also not want them. In fact, they would even lose their footing in the entire South Continent Sea. Chaos was chaos, but ingrates would never be able to raise their heads no matter where they went. They would eventually be spurned by others. Chapter 44:32. They had paid such a huge price in exchange for 50,000 spirit jades, but in the blink of an eye, those who had chosen to stay could also receive 50,000 spirit jades, and they didn't even have to pay anything. Instead, they were treated like heroes. The 3 felt that it was unfair. However, it was too late for regrets. They had chosen their own path. Even if they had a kneel, they could only continue down this path. Brilliant. Lenny couldn't help but give Chi Wonhan a thumbs up as he watched all of this. This young master was quite the charismatic one. Even though he had paid a total of 350,000 spirit jades for a single sentence, he could tell from the expressions of the escorts and the shocked bystanders that this 350,000 spirit jades had not been spent in vain. From now on, the escorts under his command would have more trust in the agency, and they would be even more loyal. If this matter were spread, the outside world would know that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency treated its subordinates generously. What was there to worry about entrusting the goods to an escort agency like this? With 350,000 spirit jades, he could buy back the loyalty of the escorts, buy back the reputation of the agency, and erase the shadow of this round's defeat. No matter how you looked at it, this kind of transaction wasn't a loss. Perhaps Chi Wonhan had only said these words out of a moment of anger, but in the future, he would realize how wise and far-sighted his decision today was. From afar, Chi Mingyuan saw this scene. Not only did he not blame Chi Wonhan for acting on his own, he even let out a hearty laugh. And the expressions of Boundless Sea and the others beside him all changed. The pride they had felt when they had just gotten back at Chi Wonhan instantly disappeared. 3 rounds of the competition had ended. Even though the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had suffered a small loss, it didn't affect the overall situation. They still had 370 points and occupied the top spot. The Four Seas Escort Agency had 270 points and was still in second place. As for the other escort agencies, they were even less of a threat to the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. In the 4th round, the event is to hide the goods in the midst of danger. As the saying goes, if you often walk by the river, you can't avoid getting your shoes wet. Along the way, you will always encounter all sorts of unexpected dangers. But no matter what the situation is, protecting the escorted goods is the #1 priority. When facing powerful bandits, if you know that you can't fight them head-on, then the first thing to do is to hide the valuable escorted goods so that they don't find them. This is a basic skill that every escort should have, Boundless Sea said clearly. Everyone had different reactions when they heard this. Some nodded. Some shook their heads. It wasn't that they objected to hiding their escorts in times of danger, but it was easy to learn and hard to master. Most of the time, there was no point in hiding. Who doesn't know how to hide things? Even a 3-year-old child would not be a problem. But the problem was that after the item was hidden, it could be hidden by a gold core stage expert or even a nascent soul stage expert. How many were there? The rules for this round of the competition are that each escort agency must send out 1 participant. They'll each find a sealed area and use the surrounding environment to hide the items. Then the 5 great escort companies and the other merchant guilds will form a bandit group to search for the items. If they succeed, then it's your win, Boundless Sea continued to announce. You've successfully hidden him? No matter how well you hide him, he'll still be found eventually. What counts as a successful hiding? Someone asked loudly. It's very simple. It depends on when the items are found. If you can't even last for the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, then it means that you failed to hide him, and you won't get any points. If you can last for 1 stick of incense, you get 50 points. If you can last for 2 sticks of incense, you get 70 points. If you can last for 3 sticks of incense, you get 100 points. If you can last for 3 sticks of incense, you get 100 points. If you can last for this round of the competition, you get 100 points. Boundless Sea explained to everyone. Hearing this, everyone understood. This sort of score was reasonable. A full score of 100 points wasn't high, but there really wasn't any danger in this round of the competition, so setting the score too high wasn't too good. Let me add one more thing. Apart from the regular matches, there's also a special challenge round. Any escort agency, after holding on for 3 incense sticks and obtaining 100 points, can accept another challenge if they want to obtain more points. That is, they can accept bets from any other escort agency. Boundless Sea suddenly said in a clear voice, "Bets?" Everyone was surprised. Their interest was immediately piqued. If there was a bet, then it must be very exciting. That's right. Both sides will each put up 100 points. The time limit is 2 sticks of incense. If the escort is found, the 100 points the escort agency has previously earned will go to the challenger. On the other hand, if the escort agency isn't found, then the escort agency will receive an additional 100 points from the challenger. In other words, you can get a total of 200 points in this round. Boundless Sea explained patiently. At this moment, the eyes of the escort agencies lit up. Without a doubt, this last challenge rule was the key to this round of the competition. After the first 3 rounds of the competition, the escort agencies, especially the leading Heaven's Equal escort agency, had opened up a large gap in points between them. If they didn't have this additional challenge and continued on as usual, it would be very difficult to close the gap before the final battle. But this time, everyone saw hope. They could get 200 points in one go. This meant that as long as they performed well, they could even surpass the Heaven's Equal escort agency, let alone close the gap. Of course, the prerequisite was that the escort agency's hidden escort agency could last for 3 sticks of incense. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have the right to be challenged, let alone get 200 points. All right, that's the rules for this round of the competition. Escort agencies can begin choosing their participants. Prepare to begin, Boundless Sea announced. As soon as he finished speaking, the escort agencies, including Chi Wen-han, once again found themselves in a difficult situation. Although this round of the competition wasn't as dangerous as the previous 2 rounds, and it wasn't as challenging as the 3rd round, it was still very difficult to choose a suitable candidate. Is there anyone willing to volunteer? Chi Wen-han furrowed his brow. His gaze swept across the faces of the escorts, but he didn't immediately mention the reward like before. After all, there was no danger to speak of in this competition, and there was no need for any rewards. Those who had the ability would naturally participate. Those who didn't have the ability, no matter how many rewards they offered, it would be pointless. They couldn't be like the previous 2 rounds, where they directly announced that as long as a participant went up, they would be rewarded with 50,000 spirit jades, regardless of whether they won or lost. That was called taking responsibility and boldness, and it would make everyone more loyal and willing. Chapter 44:33. However, if they continue to do so, it would no longer be considered as boosting morale. It would be a classic example of a fool with too many spiritual jades. At most, they would be judged as a prodigal son of the chief family. The group of escorts looked at each other. None of them dared to step forward. It was not entirely because of the lack of rewards, but because they were afraid of embarrassing the agency. Hiding the escorts, especially when they had to accept the test of the bandit group, was extremely difficult. If they did not have high attainments in this area and did not have the skills, it would be wishful thinking to even hold out for 1 incense sticks time, let alone 3 incense sticks time. When the time came, the participating escorts would not only fail to make a contribution, but would also be embarrassed. This was not only a matter of losing face, but would also affect their status in the agency in the future. Without sufficient confidence, who would dare to take the risk. How about this? As long as the person successfully hides the darts and holds out for 1 incense sticks time, the agency will reward him with 50,000 spiritual jades. Chi Wen-han had no choice but to offer the reward of 50,000 spiritual jades, as usual. Furthermore, he only requested for 1 incense sticks time. This was the bottom line and could not be considered too high. However, even so, the group of escorts still looked at each other. Still, none of them dared to step forward. It was not that they did not want the 50,000 spiritual jades. In fact, they were willing to sacrifice their lives for the 50,000 spiritual jades. However, the problem was that hiding darts was not something that could be achieved by risking one's life. It depended on skills. W less than or equal to WW. Without the skills, no matter how high one's awareness was, no matter how hard one tried, it would all be in vain. If you can hold out for more than 1 incense sticks time, I will add another 30,000 spiritual jades for every incense sticks time. Chi Wen-han could not help but feel anxious. No matter what, no one could step forward. Everyone's breathing became heavier. According to this, if one could hold out for 1 incense sticks time, the reward would be 110,000 spiritual jades. This was an astronomical figure. However, while everyone was drooling, no one dared to step forward. In this round of hiding darts, there would always be a brave man with a high reward. This time-tested strategy had suddenly lost its effectiveness. It cannot be helped. No matter how tempting the reward was, if one could not even hold out for 1 incense sticks time, what was the point of stepping forward? Wouldn't that be a disgrace? This time, Chi Wen-han was completely helpless. He could only bite the bullet and do it himself. However, although he was the young master of an escort agency, he didn't have much experience in escorting goods, nor did he have any talent for hiding things. He really didn't know what he could hide in the end. Chi Wen-han felt that if he were to fight, there was at least an 80% chance that he wouldn't even be able to last for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. He could only drop a big duck egg. Why don't I give it a try? Lin, he suddenly spoke up. Brother Ling, are you confident? Chi Wen-han's spirits were immediately lifted, as if he had grasped at the last life-saving straw. Everyone else's gaze also fell on Lin Yi. It should be okay. Lin Yi smiled faintly. That's great. We're on the same side, so I won't stand on ceremony with you. I'll leave this round of competition to you, Brother Ling. Chi Wen-han was overjoyed and made his decision without hesitation. Other than feeling surprised, the others didn't have any doubts. After all, Lin Yi's amazing performance in the first 2 rounds was clear for all to see. This honorary head of escorts was indeed very capable, and they couldn't help but be impressed. Very soon, the 32 escort agencies handed in the list of participants, and the 4th round of the Hidden Darts competition officially began. The venue for this round of competition was not Magic Lung Square, but a seaside filled with reefs. 32 sailboats were lined up in a row not far from the land. There were all kinds of boat types, but they were all used by the major escort agencies when escorting goods. Without a doubt, these sailboats were the hiding spots for this round of competition. After all, most of the robbers in the South Continent's waters were pirates, and the dangers encountered when escorting goods were often at sea. This setup could maximize the authenticity of the scene and increase the credibility and practicality of this round's Hidden Darts competition. Each of the 32 sailboats had a number on it. The contestants drew lots to determine their respective competition venues. Then, the competition officially began. Lin Yi drew lot number 30, which was a small cargo ship. Looking at this lot, Chi Wen-han and the others couldn't help but feel their hearts sink. The smaller the ship, the fewer places it could hide the escorts, and the easier it would be for the robbers to find them. In other words, the difficulty would be higher than those who drew large ships. However, since it was in front of everyone, and all the participants drew lots together, unless someone was caught cheating on the spot, there was nothing to complain about. They could only blame their own bad luck. Don't worry, Brother Ling. Anyway, we have a huge advantage now. Even if we don't get any points in this round, it's fine. We could just fight hard later. Chi Wen-han comforted him. Of course, these words were self-deception. The 4C's escort agency was behind them, and before the dust settled, no matter how big their advantage was, it was just fleeting clouds. He was purely comforting Lenny. I know. Lenny chuckled, and then took the small treasure chest from the staff member's hands. He walked towards ship number 30, and, at the same time, the participants from the other escort agencies also took their places on the ships they drew. I'll say it again. I'll only give you the time it takes to hide the escorts. Remember, this is just a normal short incense stick, not the long incense stick from before, so it's best if you move quickly. Once the time is up, I will call out your names. Those who are late will be considered to have failed to hide the escorts, and their points for this round will be 0. Also, this is a hidden escort competition, not a throwing competition. If someone tries to be clever and throws the escorts into the sea, they will also be considered to have failed to hide the escorts. Do you all understand? Boundless C swept his gaze over everyone, and then ordered, light the incense sticks, drop the curtains, activate the formation. As soon as he finished speaking, a staff member immediately lit a short incense stick in front of everyone. Thick, pitch-black curtains rose from the shore, covering all 32 ships and forming 32 hidden spaces. At the same time, a huge formation rippled out from the shore. Everyone felt their vision blur, and then everything turned dark. Let alone the 32 ships, even the black curtains couldn't be seen clearly. Even their divine senses couldn't sense it. In reality, this wasn't some sort of profound formation. It was just an ordinary smokescreen. If it was any other place, a slightly stronger expert would be able to easily pass through the formation, but this place was different. Right now, the sea fog was at its thickest. Chapter 44:34. The sea fog could greatly restrict a cultivator's senses, even blocking their divine sense. Now that it was combined with diversionary tactics and the black screen, the effect was even more unbreakable. As a result, the 32 ships in the sea were all sealed off. The competitors could hide their items without worrying about being spied on by outsiders. This was the only way to ensure the fairness of the competition. The time it took for a stick of incense to burn wasn't long, but it quickly passed. The 32 competitors arrived in front of Boundless Sea and stood in line. Very good. Everyone's very punctual. Boundless Sea smiled after calling out names. He turned his head and said to the people behind him, "Bandit bosses, let's begin." Everyone roared with laughter. The bandit group formed by the 5 escort agencies and the various merchant guilds, led by Boundless Sea, grandiosely walked toward the first ship. Seeing this, Chi Wenhan's mouth couldn't help but twitch. It was clear that the bandit group would search from the first ship down. In other words, their ship, number 30, would be the third to last ship. This didn't seem like a big deal at first glance. It was just that they were a bit further back in the order. But in reality, the lower the order, the more disadvantageous it was. This was because the bandits were also searching for escorts and ships. Even though each ship was of a different model, the overall layout was almost the same. Every time the bandits searched a ship, their proficiency would increase by a notch. After practicing on the first 29 ships, by the time they searched the 30th ship, they already had a clear idea of the places on the ship where the escorts could be hidden. If they hid in similar places, it would take them 30 minutes to find the escorts. But when they got to the end, they found the escorts. But at the end, they might find them in an instant. Because of his miraculous performance in the first 2 rounds, Chi Wenhan had high hopes for Lenny. But after seeing this scene, his heart immediately turned cold. If we really lose this round, we can only blame our luck. Chi Wenhan smiled bitterly at Lenny. There was nothing he could do. Who told him to draw number 30? That might not be true. The greatest trick to hiding items isn't in coincidence, but in surprise. As long as it can be unexpected, no matter how skilled the person you find is, it's useless. Lin, he smiled faintly. Oh, seeing that Lin, he was so confident. Chi Wenhan could not help but feel energized. Lowering his voice, he asked, "Brother Ling, where are you hiding that you are so confident?" "Brother Chi, are you sure you want to listen?" Linny smiled and looked around meaningfully. "Forget it. Let's talk about it later." Only then did Qi Wenhan realize that there were so many people present. Even if he spoke softly, he would still be heard by others. If his curiosity ruined the whole thing, then it would be too late for regrets. As time ticked by, the robbers followed the sequence. Starting from ship number 1, the search continued downwards. Every escort agency could hold out for a different amount of time, but they all maintained a common trend. The lower the ranking of the escort agencies, the shorter the duration they could last. As for the places where the various families hid their escorted goods, there were all sorts of them. They were on the beams of the cargo hold, on the deck, on the top of the mast. In any case, whether it was something that a normal person could think of or not, it could be found in any strange place on the ship. After a total of 29 escort agencies, the one that hid the most unexpected was the Four Seas Escort Agency, which had drawn ship number 3. Of course, its result was also the best. The group of robbers rummaged all over the ship and almost dismantled it, but they still couldn't find it. Most of them had already given up. In the end, it was Qi Mingyuan who didn't give up. After going through a lot of trouble, he finally solved the mystery. It turned out that this escort from the Four Seas Escort Agency was not like the other escorts, who hid their escorted goods in various nooks and crannies on the ship. Instead, he took a different route. He dug a hole in a reef not far from the ship and stuffed the escorted goods inside. At the same time, he did not forget to restore the reef to its original state. If Qi Mingyuan hadn't heard someone say that the escorted goods might have been thrown into the sea, he would not have been able to find such an unexpected method. According to the rules of the competition, escorted goods could not be thrown into the sea, but there was no rule that said that they could only be hidden on the ship and not in the reef, so this was completely possible. However, even with such an unusual method, the Four Seas Escort Agency did not get full points. Because of Qi Mingyuan's sudden inspiration, they failed at the last moment when they were about to fill up 3 incense sticks worth of time. In the end, they only got 70 points after 2 incense sticks worth of time. Seeing this result, Boundless Sea gnashed his teeth in anger. The others had already given up. If it wasn't for that bastard Qi Mingyuan causing trouble, their Four Seas Escort Agency would have gotten full points for sure. In the end, because of Qi Mingyuan's actions, not only did his points shrink by 30 points, but he also lost the opportunity to accept the challenge. With his clever plan of hiding the dart, he originally had a high chance of getting 200 points, but now it was reduced to 70 points. No matter who it was, they would go crazy. Just you wait, in this round, your Heaven's Equal Escort Agency won't get a single point. Boundless Sea gnashed his teeth in anger. His expression was unfriendly as he led everyone on a boat number 30. In his eyes, with such a small boat in the back of the queue, no matter how well they hid the escorted goods, they would be able to find them in less than an incense stick's worth of time. After practicing with the previous 29 escort agencies, the bandits could be considered half an expert at finding escorted goods. As soon as they boarded the boat, they ran to every nook and cranny where the escorted goods could be hidden. Everyone had a clear division of labor, and they were far more familiar with the task than they had been at the start. Seeing this, Qi Mingyuan couldn't help but feel apprehensive. He was obviously just pretending and wouldn't seriously look for the escorted goods. But Boundless Sea and his group were so professional, and the boat was so small, let alone him. Even if they lost 10 people, the remaining people would still be able to easily find the escorted goods. However, after everyone searched the boat from top to bottom, they couldn't find the escorted goods or the treasure chest. Don't tell me the guy also hid in the reef. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Even though this idea was strange, if the Four Seas Escort Agency could think of it, then the people from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency could naturally think of it as well. It's just a mechanically copied method. It's not presentable. Boundless Sea coldly harumphed. He suddenly sent out a powerful wave of qi, forcefully shaving off half of the surrounding reef. This way, it was clear whether or not there was a hole in the reef. No matter how they hid it, it would be useless. Chapter 44-35. Seeing this, Qi Mingyuan's expression darkened. This was the disadvantage of being at the bottom of the rankings. As long as there was a possibility, everyone could easily eliminate it. No matter how good their technique was, it was pointless. Everyone looked over and carefully checked every rock. They didn't find any escorts, nor did they find any signs of being dug. Qi Mingyuan let out a sigh of relief. Nothing. Boundless Sea couldn't help but frown. Everyone else looked at each other and said suspiciously, "Does that mean it's still hidden on the ship?" However, it was such a small ship. Everyone had already searched every possible place. They had already fallen into the habit of thinking, even if they searched again, they might not be able to find it. Seeing this, Qi Mingyuan was amused. This time, their disadvantage had turned into an advantage. After practicing on the previous 29 ships, everyone had unconsciously formed a habit of thinking, which became the best smokescreen. If we can't find it like this, then let's change the method. We'll dismantle the ship and search bit by bit. Boundless Sea suddenly said, dismantle it?" Everyone was shocked. Everyone knew that once the ship was dismantled, nothing could be hidden. If they really did that, no one would be able to last for more than an incense stick of time. Head Escort C, you're so blatantly targeting our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Are you afraid that we'll get a higher score? If word of this got out, it wouldn't be good, would it? W less than or equal to WW. Qi Mingyuan wasn't done being happy yet. When he heard this, he immediately snorted coldly with an unfriendly expression. Hearing this, the onlookers couldn't help but come to a realization. They all looked like they were watching a good show. So this was a personal grudge. Qi Mingyuan had just ruined their 4 Seas escort agency's business. Boundless Sea clearly wanted to use this opportunity to get back at him. Head Escort Qi, your words are too harsh. I swear to God, as the judge, everything I do is for the sake of fairness. Everything I think and do is for the sake of making the competition more fair and just. How could I be targeting your Equal Heaven Escort Agency? Boundless Sea sneered in response. If that's the case, then I was wrong. I apologize to you, Chief Escort High. However, let me ask you one thing. When it's my Equal Heaven Escort Agency's turn, you're already busy dismantling the ship. Is that appropriate? Qi Mingyuan asked in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. What's wrong with that? Have you forgotten, Chief Escort Qi? We're playing the role of robbers right now. Is it strange for the robbers to tear down the boat in anger? Not only did Boundless Sea not seem to be in the wrong, he even argued. This, Qi Mingyuan didn't react for a while and was choked by him. It was not uncommon for the robbers to destroy the ship after the robbery. Many of them even poured oil on it and burned it with fire in order to destroy the corpses and evidence. Head Escort Qi, if you still have any objections, I'll let you know. That's fine too. Us 5 referees might as well raise our hands to vote. The minority obeys the majority. That way, there shouldn't be anything to say, right? Boundless Sea pretended to be magnanimous. Then, he turned to the other judges and said, "Can I trouble all of you to make a statement? Do you want to dismantle this boat?" Dismantle it. Since we're robbers, how could we not dismantle it? If it wasn't for Chief Escort High's reminder, us referees would have been accused of dereliction of duty. Zhao Bufan and the other 2 said in unison. In any case, their 3 escort agencies were the same as the 4 Seas escort agency. It had already been their turn. Of the 5 great escort agencies, only the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was left. From their standpoint, it would be best if the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency didn't get a single cent. They were all jealous. Okay, then when we dismantle it, open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Otherwise, our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency will be accused of breaking the rules. Qi Mingyuan said coldly as he looked at everyone. Now that things had reached this point, there was nothing he could do. He couldn't shed all pretense of cordiality with these people. If that happened, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency would no longer have a foothold in the southern continent seas. Even if he couldn't endure this, he had to endure it until the day came when he could no longer endure it. Chief Escort Qi, don't worry. The reason we're standing here is to ensure that the competition is fair and just. We won't let your heavens equal escort agency suffer a loss for no reason. Boundless Sea and Zhao Bufan looked at each other and smiled. With Boundless Sea's orders, everyone disembarked from the boat and immediately began dismantling it. With their strength, let alone a small cargo ship, even a large sailboat could be easily dismantled. Of course, treasured ships were an exception. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, a powerful genuine chi enveloped the entire small cargo ship and lifted it into the sky. Then, it shattered into pieces in midair. It was so smashed that not even a meter of wood was left, let alone anything else. Everyone's eyes were glued to the pieces falling from the sky. Because the escorts and treasure chests were specially made, they were much sturdier than normal wood. That wave of chi had also deliberately controlled its strength, so it wouldn't damage the escorts. With their outstanding eyesight, they should have been able to see it easily. Nothing. Everyone was dumbfounded. Boundless Sea was dumbfounded. Even Chi Mingyuan, who thought it was over, was dumbfounded. There's nothing in the reef, and there's nothing on the boat. The result is obvious. This punk probably threw the escorts into the sea. Boundless Sea reacted and sneered. He turned around and left. Zhao Bufan and the others looked at each other and followed Boundless Sea. Only Chi Mingyuan, who was left behind, was still confused. Throwing the escorts into the sea was considered a failure. From what he knew, Lin Yi wasn't such an irresponsible person. I hereby announce that Heaven's Equal Escort Agency has thrown the escorts into the sea, which is a violation of the competition rules. As a result, there will be no points for this round, Boundless Sea announced to everyone. The crowd went into an uproar. Chi Wenhan and the others, who had been waiting anxiously, all looked as if they had seen a ghost. Thrown into the sea? How is that possible? Wait a moment. Isn't Chief Escort High's conclusion a bit too arbitrary? Under everyone's gaze, Lin Yi slowly walked in front of Boundless Sea and the others. Your Heaven's Equal Escort Agencies, Ling Yi. Boundless Sea sized up Lin Yi from the corner of his eyes. If there was no one around, with his ruthlessness, he might have directly attacked and killed this piece of trash who had ruined his plans. That's right. Dare I ask, Chief Escort High, you just said that I threw the escorts into the sea. Do you have any proof? Lin Yi's lips curved in a playful smile. With so many witnesses, isn't that proof? You don't think that I, as a referee, would deliberately fabricate a crime to slander a nobody like you, do you? Boundless Sea looked at him with disdain. Chapter 44:36. The onlookers laughed. Even though Ling Yi was in the limelight in the second round, he was just a nobody compared to the big shots of the escort agency. That's hard to say. After all, it's hard to tell what's in a person's heart. What do you think, Chief Escort High? Lin Yi smiled nonchalantly. Since you're so sure that I threw the package into the sea, why don't we just fish it out from the sea and show it to everyone? That's the real evidence. The water isn't deep anyways. It should be quick to search for it, right? Okay, since you've brought it up yourself, then I'll let you die knowing. Boundless Sea smiled coldly and nodded. This request was reasonable, and he couldn't refute it. However, he didn't feel like there was a need to. In such a small, enclosed space, the only places to hide the package were on the boat or on the reef. Now that those two had been eliminated, the package couldn't be in the sea. Could it be in the sky? With a command, the four workers jumped into the sea and started fishing. Because of the black screen, even if Lin Yi threw it, he could only throw it in his own area. This small area could be easily measured with their feet. It was too easy. Boundless Sea stared at Lin Yi with a cold smile, waiting for the four's good news. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the four returned. What do you think? You should give up now, right? Boundless Sea was so confident that he didn't even look at the four. He smirked at Lin Yi. Chief Escort High, before you say that, why don't you ask them what they got? Lin Yi looked at him as if he were an idiot. How is that possible? Boundless Sea turned his head. Only then did he realize that the four were empty-handed. They were helplessly shrugging at him. They didn't find the package they had expected. You keep saying that I threw the package into the sea, but now I've searched the entire seabed. We've stepped all over the seabed, but what's the result? Lin Yi's expression was indifferent. What do you say, Chief Escort High? That's right. Since the match was fair and we didn't break any rules, Chief Escort High, you should at least give us an explanation, right? Otherwise, today's matter won't be easy to resolve. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan, father and son, followed suit. Everyone's gazes were filled with playfulness. Even Zhao Bufan and the others moved to the side without a trace. They were just throwing stones at a person when he was down. The mastermind was Boundless Sea. The one who was now in trouble was naturally Boundless Sea. In this highly anticipated event of the South Continent's escort agencies, if they were to be accused of abusing their power to avenge a personal grudge, even if it was a traditional wealthy family, like the Four Seas escort agency, his reputation would also suffer a great loss, and he might even lose his position as the overlord of the South Continent escort agency. The consequences would be unimaginable. Explanation? What explanation do you want? Boundless Sea had no intention of lowering his head. Now that things had come to this, he could only stiffen his neck and continue. If he lowered his head now, then he would be the one to be mocked. Chief Escort High, you're a reputable figure. You can't act shamelessly in front of everyone, can you? Qi Mingyuan was so angry that he laughed and said, "Let me ask you, did you throw the escort into the sea?" No, Boundless Sea admitted on the spot. After all, he couldn't act shamelessly even if he wanted to. Otherwise, the other side could just fish out the evidence and shut him up. However, he didn't give up. He forced a cold smile and said, "However, just because you didn't throw the escort into the sea doesn't mean you didn't break the rules, right? Everyone has seen what it means to twist words and force logic." Qi Mingyuan finally couldn't hold back his anger. Even though he didn't curse out loud, he shed all pretense of cordiality on the spot. He pointed at Boundless Sea and shouted, "If that's the case, then Chief Escort High, why don't you tell us how he broke the rules? Let everyone be the judge." Seeing this, everyone looked like they were waiting for a good show. From the looks of it, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was going to challenge the Four Seas Escort Agency. A big fight was about to take place. You're saying I'm twisting words and forcing logic? Boundless Sea's expression instantly darkened. He laughed coldly and said, "In this entire venue, there are only 3 places that can hide the escort: the boat, the reef, and the sea. Right now, none of these 3 places can have the escort. I can only suspect that this Ling Yi of your escort agency didn't hide the escort at all. Instead, he directly destroyed the escort into powder." When Zhao Bufan and the others heard this, they couldn't help but nod their heads. This was really possible. If the escort wasn't destroyed, it couldn't have disappeared in a thin air, right? This is a hidden escort competition, not a destroyed escort competition. If this isn't breaking the rules, then what is? Boundless Sea said confidently and proudly. Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan turned their heads to look at Lin Yi. This time, they weren't sure. Even though they believed that Lin Yi wouldn't do such a thing, what Boundless Sea said wasn't wrong. It couldn't have disappeared in a thin air, right? Well said, but Boss High, if I were to take out the package, would you have to swallow your words? Lin Yi said faintly, unhurriedly. If you take it out, not only will I swallow my words, I'll also slap myself on the face. Boundless Sea laughed loudly. He had the character of an ambitious and ruthless person who dared to take responsibility for his actions. Ha! Lin Yi looked at him mockingly. In front of everyone, he turned his head and walked into the black-covered Area 30. Before anyone could react, he had already come out, but with an escort treasure chest in his hands. How is this possible? Boundless Sea was completely dumbfounded. As the overlord of the Southern Continent escort agency industry, he naturally wasn't an idiot. But now, he suddenly felt like his brain wasn't enough to process this. Not only Boundless Sea, but Zhao Bufan and the others also looked like they had seen a ghost. How the fuck did this happen? What did you say just now, Chief Escort High? Qi Mingyuan didn't miss the opportunity to mock him. At the same time, he gave a thumbs up to Lin Yi. Even though he didn't know how he did it, His honorary chief escort high was indeed an expert. He could casually toy with Boundless Sea and the others in the palm of his hand. He couldn't help but admire him. Everyone looked at Boundless Sea in unison, as if they were watching a good show. They wanted to see if this head escort Sea would go back on his word. Slap! Slap! In front of everyone, Boundless Sea didn't say anything else and slapped himself twice. Only then did he say, "Sorry, I made a mistake just now. Are you guys satisfied now?" Seeing the bright red handprints on both sides of his cheeks, Lin Yi and Chi Mingyuan looked at each other. They couldn't help but think to themselves, this guy really can be considered an ambitious and ruthless person. Slapping himself in front of so many people wasn't something a normal person could do. But this way, the situation that had been extremely advantageous to them had been resolved by the other side's 2 slaps. Chapter 44:37. If they didn't let it go, it would seem like they weren't being generous enough. Public opinion would shift towards the other side. Okay, since head escort high says so, then we won't say anything else. However, it's been a full 3 joss sticks worth of time. We've used so many methods to no avail. According to the rules, our escort agency should get 100 points. There's no doubt about that, right? Chi Mingyuan immediately said. Boundless Sea lowered his head in silence. He wanted to object, but after making such a big mistake, especially since the other side pretended to be magnanimous and didn't pursue the matter any further, how could he object? Even Boundless Sea was scared. Zhao Bufan and the others wouldn't touch him either. They could only silently agree. That's good. Chi Mingyuan nodded his head in satisfaction. He looked at Lin Yi, Chi Wenhan, and the others and smiled. Even though there were many twists and turns, the result was satisfactory. They had gotten 100 points, which far exceeded their expectations. Everyone thought that this farce had come to an end. Just as they were about to move on to the next agency, Lin Yi suddenly said, "Everyone, please wait a moment. Isn't there a special challenge segment? I want to try it out. Is there anyone who wants to challenge me? If there is, I'll put the item back where it was." Everyone's eyes lit up. Right, this was the most important segment of this round. Taking out 100 points as a bet, there was a 200-point difference between entering and leaving. However, excitement was just excitement. If they couldn't find the item after so much effort, it was clear how difficult it was. How could a normal escort agency have the confidence to challenge him? "I'll go." Boundless Sea suddenly shouted. He had just suffered such a huge loss. He was worried that he wouldn't have a chance to get back at them. Who would have thought that this kid would actually deliver the opportunity to him? Okay. He smiled calmly. He turned around and walked to Area 30. He hid the item again, walked out, and made an inviting gesture to Boundless Sea. "Please. Humph. Kid, you don't think that your little trick is so brilliant that no one can break it, do you? Just now, I deliberately gave you a taste of the sweetness. My 4C's escort agency will definitely get this 100 points. Boundless Sea grinned sinisterly. He turned his head and ordered the 4C's escort agency's assistant. "Go call IGZ over." The crowd went into an uproar. Zhao Bufan and the others suddenly realized that Boundless Sea had a backup plan. No wonder he lowered his head. It wasn't like him at all. "Lays around for a while?" Chi Mingyuan and Chi Wenhan, father and son, asked. His expression immediately changed. "What's wrong? Is this person very powerful?" Lenny asked curiously. I can't say that he's powerful. His strength is just SOSO. However, he's an extraordinary person. It said that he's very good at breaking all kinds of formations. He used to wander around primitive places like Lufing Forest. I didn't expect him to seek refuge with the 4C's escort agency. Chi Wenhan explained. Good at breaking formations? Lenny was slightly taken aback and became even more puzzled. What does this have to do with the competition? Brother Ling, didn't you use a formation to hide the delivery? Chi Wenhan couldn't help but lower his voice. He was thinking the same thing as Boundless Sea and the others. He felt that he must have set up a small camouflage to hide the delivery, which was why so many people didn't see it. Who said that? Lenny glanced at him and immediately laughed. At this moment, in the distance, a sloppy uncle came. From head to toe, his clothes were dirty and tattered. He also had a pungent body odor. He looked like an old beggar. This person was the subordinate of the Four Seas escort agency, Lai Jeezy. After hearing Boundless Sea's explanation, Lai Jeezy bared his yellow teeth. He looked up and down at Lin E and said disdainfully, "These days, there aren't many people who know how to use formations. Even if they do, it's just a small trick. It's not worth mentioning. It's fine to fool amateurs, but for an expert like me, I can see the problem with one glance." "Uncle C, just you wait." After saying this, Lai Jeezy curled his lips and strode into Area 30. Lenny looked at this guy and couldn't help but laugh. This is the strange person you guys were talking about. Strange people have their own strange appearances. You don't even know this? Have you really not seen the world, or what? Are you a frog at the bottom of a well? Boundless Sea sneered after hearing this. Who's the frog at the bottom of a well? We'll know soon enough. Lin, he smiled faintly. He couldn't be bothered to argue. "Ha, stubborduck." Boundless Sea didn't waste any more words. He waited outside for Lai Jeezy's good news. He thought it would be a piece of cake, but he didn't think that he would wait for 2 incense sticks worth of time. "Time's up. Chief C, can you invite your master Lai out?" Chi Mingyuan immediately said. The time limit for the challenge was 2 incense sticks worth of time. "Go and call him out." Boundless Sea's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what was going on inside, but he could only do as he was told. However, when he saw Lai Jeezy come out empty-handed, his face immediately turned ashen. He didn't find it again. "Uncle C, you can't blame me for this. Apart from the large illusion formation outside, there really isn't any formation inside. There isn't any formation at all." Lai Jeezy spread his hands helplessly. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone looked at Lin E strangely. He couldn't find it anywhere. Now, even a formation could be ruled out. How did this guy hide the dart? Could it be that he was a professional in this field? Thank you for the 100 points, Chief C. As a senior in the Four Seas escort agency, you spared no effort to support our Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's junior. You really are an elder. We will gladly accept the 100 points. Chi Mingyuan said happily. Boundless Sea's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, but it was too late to regret. They had only obtained 70 points in this round. In the end, they lost the whole 100 points. Not only did they not get a single point in the 4th round, they lost 30 points. This wasn't just a big loss, it was a loss of blood. In comparison, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had won this round. They had earned a whole 200 points, which was more than the total points of most escort agencies. It was enough to make people go crazy with jealousy. Next one. Boundless Sea didn't even want to look at Chi Mingyuan and the others. He turned his head and was about to go to the next house. At this moment, someone suddenly stood up and shouted, "You hit it so well. Why don't you give our Dragon Boat Escort Agency a chance, and let us try too?" The crowd was in an uproar. The person who spoke was the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's chief escort, Long Kiba. Chapter 4438. Read 336. As he spoke, Chung Haonan and Wu Baoyang stared at Lin E maliciously. They had a ferocious expression as if they wanted to swallow him alive. Lin E discreetly glanced at the two of them. He wasn't interested in Long Kiba, but he had to get rid of the other two before he left the southern continent. Especially when he saw the latter, he couldn't help but be slightly startled. He was the target of his trip. Lin E had seen Wu Baoyang's portrait on the wanted poster from the law enforcement hall. Although it was his first time seeing him in person, he could recognize him at a glance with his iconic triangular yin-yang eyes. Lin E had known for a long time that Wu Baoyang would also participate in the South Continent Escort Agency's event. Unfortunately, from yesterday until now, he had only seen Long Kiba and Chung Haonan, but he had not seen Wu Baoyang. Perhaps Wu Baoyang was regarded as their last trump card, so he stayed in the inn and did not come out at all. But now, he probably saw an opportunity, so he was temporarily pulled over. This guy is finally willing to show himself. Lin, he sneered in his heart and secretly clenched his fists. After holding it in for so long, he couldn't help but feel a little unable to restrain his killing intent. However, in the end, he didn't act rashly. Young hero Ling, you decide. Qi Mingyuan looked at Lin. He didn't know how Lin had done it. He was afraid that it would ruin their plan, so he didn't dare to make a decision. Since someone has taken the initiative to give us points, of course, the more the better. Lin smiled indifferently. You sure talk big. Then I'll let you open your eyes wide and see who's giving away points. Long Kibo waved his hand and said to Chung Haonan and Wu Baoyang, you too. Let's go in and take a look. Let's see what this kid is up to. With that, Long Kiba led his men straight to the 30th area. There weren't many people, just him, Chung Wu, and the other two. Although they weren't part of the bandit group, there was still a huge commotion earlier. They had already heard everything that was going on inside, so there was no point in bringing more people. He only needed Wu Baoyang, and that would be enough. The three of them walked into Area 30. At this moment, this small area that was surrounded by darkness was already a mess. The small cargo ship had been dismantled into pieces of broken wooden planks, floating on the surface of the sea. Even the surrounding reefs had been cut into pieces by Jinqi. Moreover, the seawater was muddy. It was obvious that the bottom of the sea had been stepped on by someone, and the sand and mud underneath had all been turned over. You sure did a thorough search. Long Kiba laughed coldly. If it was anyone else who saw this scene, their heart would definitely skip a beat. If even this could not be found, it meant that it would be difficult to find. However, he was not worried at all. It's up to you now. The reason why he called Wu Baoyang over the last minute was because Chung Haonan had said that this military advisor had a unique skill that could be used to find things in this kind of competition. It's a piece of cake. Wu Baoyang's aura suddenly exploded. At first glance, it seemed like he was only at the Golden Core great perfection. However, immediately after, Area 30 suddenly turned upside down. Seawater, sand, and broken wood, everything in the area suddenly flew into the air as if they had lost the shackles of gravity. The entire area became a weightless world. Immediately after, Wu Baoyang slowly clenched his palms. Everything in air instantly went berserk and collided with each other violently. Originally, it was only fragmented, but after the collision, it became even more fragmented until it was nothing more than a grain of rice. The military advisor is indeed an expert. I have never seen or heard of such a magical skill. Long Kiba suddenly had an eye-opener. If they were to really fight, although his strength was not weak, it was limited to direct fighting and killing. He did not have such a powerful and magical skill like Wu Baoyang. It's just a piece of cake. This skill is called All Things Kill. Anything with a slightly weaker quality will eventually be crushed into powder by something stronger. The treasure chest is made of special dark steel. If I'm not mistaken, its quality should be the strongest. So, when All Things Kill is over, the only thing left is the treasure chest. Wu Baoyang smiled mysteriously. In front of the military advisor's All Things Kill, including the formation, everything will be destroyed. Any concealment method will be ineffective. As long as it is hidden here, it will definitely be revealed. Chung Haonan added. With his relationship with Wu Baoyang, he was very clear about these methods. Then I'll wait to celebrate for you, military advisor. After this round of competition, our Dragon Boat Escort Agency will jump to second place in the standings. We will surpass the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Long Kiba laughed proudly. As expected, it will happen soon. Wu Baoyang's triangular yin-yang, I revealed a hint of pride as he commented. However, this Ling is quite skilled. He was able to hide the package so well that normal methods wouldn't be able to find it. No wonder Boundless Sea and the others suffered. Isn't this a small trick in front of the military advisor? The Heavens Equal Escort Agency only knows how to play tricks. They will never be able to show off. This time, let them have a taste of kicking an iron plate. Chung Haonan laughed coldly. While the three of them were chatting, the All Things Kill hanging in the air finally ended. Anything with a slightly weaker quality had already lost its shape. Even the rocks had been crushed into powder. The pure shall rise, the corrupted shall fall. Under Wu Baoyang's control, the all things kill hanging in the air slowly separated into two layers. The slightly lighter ones all floated up, and the slightly heavier ones all sank. During this separation process, anything that had a shape could be seen clearly. The treasure chest had to be among them. Long Qiba, Cheng Haonan, and Wu Baoyang all stared at all this with wide eyes, hoping to find the treasure chest that they had expected. However, even after the separation, there was nothing. This. Wu Baoyang choked for a long time, unable to say a proper sentence. Long Qiba and Cheng Haonan were also dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, they had the demeanor of an expert. They were so confident and calm, but they still couldn't find the treasure chest? Weren't they making a fool of themselves? Military advisor, what should we do now? Long Qiba was completely flustered. Because they didn't get a single point in the second round, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency only got a total of 160 points in the first 3 rounds. Even if they included this round, they would only get 50 points in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. That would only add up to 210 points. Chapter 4439. If they gave the Heavens Equal Escort Agency another 100 points, wouldn't they only be left with 110 points? After 4 rounds of competition, they had only scored 110 points. Even if this score did not put them at the bottom of all 32 escort agencies, it was still at the bottom. Yet, they still wanted to become one of the top 5 escort agencies and replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Wouldn't that be laughable? Don't worry. My destruction of all things cannot go wrong. As long as the item is hidden inside, it will definitely be enveloped by it. There's no way it can escape. Wu Baoyang forced himself to calm down. Then what do we do now? Cheng Haonan and Long Qiba couldn't help but look at each other. There's one possibility. The quality of the Xian iron used to create this treasure chest isn't up to standard, so it was destroyed by the destruction of all things. Wu Baoyang pinched his chin. Yes. Xian iron itself is very rare. This item is just a symbolic item for the competition. The Four Seas Escort Agency might have used some low-quality Xian iron to make up for the difference in price. Long Qiba immediately agreed. The Four Seas Escort Agency was the host agency of this year's Grand Assembly. After receiving a large sum of funds, all the supplies were provided by them. No matter who it was, they would want to make a profit from this. But if that's the case, what do we do? Cheng Haonan frowned. Those people outside didn't care what methods you used. Only by taking out the treasure chest would you be able to prove that you had found the sealed package. Otherwise, it would be nonsense to say that everything was about length, style, literature, and learning. Yes, military advisor. Do you have a plan? Long Qiba looked like he had a headache. Kiki, I do have a plan. Wu Baoyang rolled his eyes and laughed sinisterly. In any case, there definitely isn't a treasure chest here. After we go out, we just have to make a false accusation that Ling Yi destroyed it. I'm sure he won't be able to take it out. When that happens, we won't be able to explain ourselves. Yes, I think that Boundless Sea suffered a huge loss. He definitely won't accept it. When the time comes, he will definitely help us deal with Ling Yi. We'll naturally be in an invincible position. Cheng Haonan's eyes lit up and nodded. Military advisor, what a brilliant plan. Let's do that. Long Qiba was instantly overjoyed. After the 3 finished discussing, Wu Baoyang took the lead, followed by Long Qiba and Cheng Haonan. They immediately rushed out aggressively. Wu Baoyang strode in front of Lin Yi and pointed at Lin Yi's nose. He said fiercely, "When you put the escort back just now, I saw you. Did he take the opportunity to destroy it?" It was destroyed just now. When Boundless Sea heard this, he shivered and joined in. Okay, I was wondering why even Master Lai couldn't find him. So it was you who was secretly messing around. Man, arrest him. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts from the Four Seas Escort Agency immediately surrounded Lin Yi. They had always disliked Lin Yi, and now they finally had a chance to vent their anger. Seeing this, Cheng Haonan and Long Qiba were overjoyed. Sure enough, Boundless Sea was a ready-made fighter. What do you want? Are you trying to bully the Equal Heaven Escort Agency? Qi Mingyuan roared. Qi Wenhan also hurriedly led the people of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency over. Both sides faced each other, their auras surging, and the atmosphere was extremely tense. It looked like a bloody battle was about to begin. Everyone, please calm down. At this moment, Lin Yi stood out. After everyone calmed down, he looked at Wu Baoyang and said, "Let me give you a word of advice. Next time, before pointing your finger at me, write your will. Also, what evidence do you have?" Evidence? Wu Baoyang laughed evilly. "I knew you would use this to brush me off. It's very simple. I dare say that even you can't take out the escort treasure chest from inside. This is the best evidence. Okay, as the judge of the conference, I order you to go inside and take out the escort treasure chest. If you can't do it, then don't blame me for being impolite. Our South Continent Escort Agency Conference is not a place for a nameless brat like you to play tricks." Boundless C said forcefully. "Chief Escort High, some people like to fart. You don't have to come so close to smell it, do you? Or could it be that you can't afford to lose, so you're using this opportunity to find an excuse to take revenge?" Qi Mingyuan stood out bravely. Qi Wenhan and the others did not show any weakness, each of them standing in front of Lin Yi. Looking at their backs, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel moved. Coming to South Continent was really worth it, being able to get to know such a group of people. "Chief Escort High, and everyone else, don't be anxious." Lin Yi patted everyone's back, walked to the front, and said, "This matter isn't that complicated. Since they want evidence, then I'll give them evidence. Isn't it just taking out the escort treasure chest? I'll take it for you now. Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully." After saying this, Lin Yi immediately separated the crowd and walked towards Area 30. However, he was stopped by Wu Baoyang. "Wait, just to be safe, I think it's better to search them first before going in. Otherwise, why don't you sneak the escort treasure chest in and claim that you took it out from inside? Makes sense, search them." Boundless C immediately agreed. The escort treasure chest was not small, but it was not big either. A normal person would not be able to smuggle it in, but if it was a golden core expert who knew how to camouflage, it might be possible. "You're going too far." Qi Wenhan couldn't stand it anymore. The other side's intentions were clear. They were clearly here to pick a fight. Lin Yi looked deeply at Wu Baoyang, killing intent flashing in his eyes. If he wasn't afraid of implicating the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, he would probably have killed them already. However, now is not the time for that. "Okay, I'll satisfy you. However, for the sake of fairness, I request an unrelated notary to search me. As for you guys, I'm afraid that you'll frame me." Lin Yi's tone carried a hint of ridicule. The representatives of the Chamber of Commerce here can all be notary witnesses. There shouldn't be any problems with them searching me, right? Boundless C snorted coldly and immediately had a group of representatives search Lin Yi's body. Lin Yi cooperated. In front of everyone, he let them search him a few times. After confirming that there was nothing, Boundless C, Wu Baoyang, and the others finally let him go. They stared at Lin Yi as he walked into Area 30. If the rules didn't forbid it, they would have gone in to monitor him. "I want to see what kind of tricks this kid can come up with." Wu Baoyang, Long Kiba, and Chung Haonan sneered. He had even used all things kill, but he still couldn't find the escorted item. This proved that there was either nothing inside, or it had been destroyed by him. Otherwise, the world would have gone mad. However, when they saw Lin Yi walk out with the escort in one hand, Wu Baoyang and the others felt the world spin. Fuck, has the world gone mad? Chapter 4440. You've given up now? Lin Yi casually threw the escort on the ground. Everyone's eyelids twitched. Then, he said calmly, "You can settle the bill now. Say it in a small way." Everyone was taken aback for a moment before they realized that he was referring to the points he was referring to. "What kind of trick did you use?" Wu Baoyang didn't give up. His triangular eyes emitted a dangerous light. He was about to rush forward and grab Lin Yi's collar. "You can give it a try." Lin Yi suddenly laughed. He was just worried that he didn't have a chance to kill his opponent. If this guy took the initiative to attack him, he could justifiably kill this scum in front of everyone. At the same time, Qi Mingyuan, Qi Wenhan, and the others suddenly emitted killing intent, forcing Wu Baoliang to stop midway. If he didn't stop, these people would really attack together and kill him. Oomph, I'll find out soon enough when you die in my hands. Wu Baoliang laughed cruelly. After looking deeply at Lin Yi, he said something to Cheng Haonan and Long Qiba, then turned and left. Looking at Wu Baoliang's back, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel pity. This guy was arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. Of course, if he was really stupid, he wouldn't have lived until today. He would have fallen into the law enforcement hall's hands in the northern part of the island. Chief Escort High, you have nothing to say now, right? Lin Yi turned to Boundless Sea and said. Boundless Sea's face was ashen. He didn't even say a word. He coldly snorted and turned to leave. Looking at his posture, he was too lazy to search the next two escort agencies. He wasn't in the mood to do so. Lin Yi, Qi Mingyuan, and Qi Wenhan looked at each other and smiled. Then, he turned to the crowd and said, which other escort agency is willing to challenge me? Fuck. Everyone's faces darkened. You've already earned a whole 300 points in this round. You've dragged the Four Seas Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency into the pit, and you're still not satisfied? You still want to take advantage of me? Lin Yi's gaze swept over the remaining people in charge of the escort agencies. They couldn't help but shrink their necks. There was definitely a trick to this, but it was definitely not something that could be solved in a short period of time. Only a fool would fall for it. That's it. Forget it then. Lin Yi was a bit disappointed. Since no one came to challenge him, there was no need to return the escort. As for the bandits, even though their leader, Boundless Sea, was gone, the match still had to continue. Zhao Bufan and the others were still there. He immediately turned to the next escort agency. Brotherling, can you tell me now? Where are you hiding? Seeing that everyone had gone far away, and that his own father, Qi Mingyuan, had also followed them, Qi Wenhan hurriedly rushed over. Compared to the excitement of obtaining 300 points, he was actually more curious about this matter. It's a secret. Lin Yi smiled and didn't say anything else. The answer was simple. He just casually put it into the space of a jade pendant. Of course, no one would be able to find it. However, this answer could not be told to anyone. It could only remain a secret forever. Qi Wenhan felt like 100 claws were scratching at his heart. However, Lin Yi refused to relent. There was nothing he could do. No amount of coaxing or pestering would work. In the end, he could only bitterly give up. However, he quickly threw this matter to the back of his mind. This was because the bandits had already found the other two escort agencies' escorts. At this point, the fourth round of the Hidden Darts competition was over. Everyone returned to Magic Hole Plaza. At this point, the publicly announced rankings were already over. After 4 rounds of competition, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had a super high score of 670 points. Their advantage was so great that everyone could only look up to them in awe. Next, in second place, was the traditional powerhouse Divine Wind Escort Agency, with a total of 270 points. Although it was far from being able to compare to the outstanding Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, it still trampled on the other escort agencies. As for the Four Seas Escort Agency, who was originally in second place, because they had challenged the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency in the 4th round of competition, not only did they not manage to keep the 70 points they had earned, but they also lost 30 points. In the end, after 4 rounds of competition, they had a total of 240 points. They were tied for 3rd place with the other 5 major escort agencies. It was worth mentioning that the ambitious Dragon Boat Escort Agency had a total of 110 points in 4 rounds of competition. They were ranked 5th from the bottom. If this trend continued, they would be ranked among the 5 weakest escort agencies in the South Continent, let alone competing for a spot in the top 5 escort agencies. On the publicly announced rankings, the 32 escort agencies' scores were clear at a glance. Some were happy, while others were sad. Now, the focus of everyone's discussion was naturally on the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, the super dark horse of this competition. Although it was one of the 5 major escort agencies in the previous competition, most people did not have high hopes for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in the beginning. The bets were unanimously against the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, with at least 7 out of 10 people betting on it falling out of the top 5 escort agencies. Of course, these people were already crying their hearts out. After 4 rounds of competition, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had scored 670 points, pulling a huge gap of 400 points from the second place. This was definitely unprecedented. Unless there was a catastrophic accident, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, which originally belonged to the Four Seas Escort Agency, had already fallen into the hands of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in this competition. From this competition onward, the power structure of the escort agency industry in the South Continent would undergo earth-shattering changes. The focus would shift from the dark, cold territorial waters to the previously unknown green arc territorial waters. From then on, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would replace the Four Seas Escort Agency as the #1 wealthy and influential agency in the South Continent. This was the consensus of almost everyone. Of course, other than the mainstream public opinion, there were naturally many other opinions. People who wholeheartedly criticized the Heavens Equal Escort Agency could still be seen. Regardless of whether these people were backed by other escort agencies, at least their arguments were not without reason. Looking at the previous South Continent Escort Agency Grand Meetings, although the first 4 rounds of competition were important as they could establish an advantage and widen the gap between the two sides, the real deciding event was still the last round. Although the Heavens Equal Escort Agency currently had a huge advantage, if they performed poorly in the final round of the competition, other escort agencies would take advantage of the situation and overtake them. Even the latecomers might overtake them. Only the escort agency that survived the 5th round of the competition and had the last laugh would be the true winner. Of course, the 5th round of competition would only begin the next day. At least for today, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was undoubtedly the most popular agency among the chambers of commerce. Compared to the various discussions in the market, none of the 32 escort agencies, including the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, dared to let their guard down at this time. All of them were training their troops and making their final preparations for the final battle tomorrow. Chapter 44-41. No, we can't go on like this. We must take action immediately. We must kill Ling Yi. Long Kiba couldn't help but roar. There were still 3 people in the room. Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoliang were sitting to one side and drinking tea. However, because Long Kiba hammered the table, the rare spirit tea had spilled all over the floor. They vowed to become one of the top 5 escort agencies and replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. For this, they even formed an alliance with the Poison Eye mercenaries. Their dreams were great, but unfortunately, reality was cruel. There was only 1 round left in the conference, and they achieved their ambition of becoming one of the top 5, but unfortunately, they were at the bottom. It's not difficult to kill Ling Yi. The difficult part is how to find an opportunity to do so. Wu Baoliang said with a gloomy expression. The scene that happened today had completely disgraced him. He had clearly used the all things mutually kill, such a foolproof move, but in the end, he was still fooled by Ling Yi. This was unbearable. More importantly, it was the first time the two of them had met face to face. However, for some unknown reason, he faintly felt that Ling Yi actually had a killing intent towards him. Because of his special cultivation method, his senses were much sharper than an ordinary expert in the Golden Core realm. There was no mistake about this. Was it because the other side hated the Poison Eye mercenaries, so he hated them too? This was not impossible, but Wu Baoliang's intuition told him that this matter was not that simple. In short, whether it was to kill this hidden danger or to remove the obstacle for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, Ling Yi, who suddenly appeared, had to die. But we have no right to set the rules of the competition, and it's difficult to think of a way to manipulate the situation. Whether we could defeat the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, especially against Ling everything depends on luck. It's hard to say. Long Kiba scratched his head with a conflicted expression. Not necessarily. We can't do it ourselves. But someone can do it, Wu Baoyong said meaningfully. Who? Long Kiba was stunned. Brother Long, did you forget the Four Seas escort agency? Chung Haonan sneered from the side. From today's situation, it seems that besides us, Boundless Sea also hates this Ling Yi to the bone. It's just that he doesn't dare to brazenly do so. You two mean to go to the Four Seas escort agency to find Boundless Sea? Long Kiba's eyes lit up. That's right. Their Four Seas escort agency has always been the hegemon of the South Continent's escort agencies. I heard that most of the competition rules were set by Boundless Sea. Isn't it a piece of cake for us to go up against the equal of Heaven Escort Agency? Chung Haonan laughed. Yeah. Long Kiba slapped his head and said happily, if we had gone to him for help before today, Boundless Sea might not have responded to us. But now, he will definitely help us with this small favor. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. This phrase has been tried and tested many times. Without further ado, Long Kiba and the other two discussed the matter. He immediately set off for the Four Seas escort agency, asking to see Boundless Sea. While the three handed over their name cards and waited to be notified, Boundless Sea was smashing cups in his study. Next to him was an exquisite tea set. One by one, they threw them on the ground, and the sound of banging rang out incessantly. This was Boundless Sea's habit. Whenever he was in a bad mood, he would smash the tea set. After venting out most of the evil fire, his mood naturally calmed down. The servants stood to the side, trembling with fear, waiting for Boundless Sea to finish smashing. They had to quickly clean up the broken pieces on the ground. Otherwise, if Boundless Sea got annoyed and got angry again, they might be the ones to suffer. When Boundless Sea finished smashing, his anger subsided. The guard, who had been waiting to the side, didn't miss the opportunity to hand over Long Kiba's and the others' name cards to Boundless Sea. Dragon Boat Escort Agency? What are these people doing here? Boundless Sea frowned slightly as he looked at the name card. Although the Dragon Boat Escort Agency wasn't the weakest in the South Continent, they had always been suppressed by the equal of Heaven Escort Agency. They had never had a chance to stand out, so naturally, they weren't worthy of his attention. Uncle C, do you want me to send them away? The guard at the door suggested after observing the situation. The Southern Continent Escort Agency Festival was being held here. These days, the heads of all the escort agencies would come to the Four Seas Escort Agency to pay their respects. The stronger large escort agencies were able to see Boundless Sea. As for the smaller escort agencies, they were all sent away with just a word. They didn't even get to see Boundless Sea's face. Wait. Boundless Sea hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Take them to the small hall and wait. Yes, the guard replied and left. He couldn't help but feel surprised. This unknown Dragon Boat Escort Agency had some weight in Uncle C's heart. Even though they didn't have the right to enter the main hall, they could at least enter the small hall and not be sent away with just a word. What they didn't know was that Boundless Sea didn't care about the Dragon Boat Escort Agency at all. The reason why he agreed to meet them was purely because of what happened during the day. He felt that there might be something more to it. Long Kiba and the other two were led into the small hall. No one came over to serve tea, and no one came over to talk to them. They just waited like this for a quarter of an hour. When the three of them were filled with anger and couldn't hold it in any longer, Boundless Sea finally arrived. Dragon Boat Escort Agency's Long Kiba, Poison Eye mercenaries Chung Haonan and Wu Bao Liang greet Chief Escort C. Although they were unhappy, they didn't dare to be negligent in front of Boundless Sea. They hurriedly stood up and greeted him. Please sit. I was talking to an important guest just now. Sorry for the delay. Please don't take it to heart. Boundless Sea chuckled. This was bullshit. In reality, he was just drinking tea in his study. He just wanted to ignore the three of them. Chief Escort C, you have many matters to attend to. Please forgive us for disturbing you. Long Kiba hurriedly smiled apologetically. You're being too polite. Why did the three of you come to my 4Cs escort agency? Boundless C couldn't be bothered to waste words with the three of them. He went straight to the point. Long Kiba was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Chung Haonan and Wu Baoyang. They were clearly caught off guard. He originally wanted to exchange a few more pleasantries to get closer to them and increase their chances of success before talking about the matter. All right, let's not beat around the bush. Since Chief Escort C has come straight to the point, we won't beat around the bush. Long Kiba simply said, one doesn't come to a temple without a cause. We came here to ask Chief Escort C for a small favor. Chapter 44-42. That's right. I hope Chief Escort C can help us arrange an opponent for the upcoming match. Long Kiba blurted out. You want me to throw the match? Boundless C's expression changed, and he said, coldly, don't even think about it. The Southern Continent Escort Association's grand gathering has always been fair and impartial. No cheating is allowed. Otherwise, the grand gathering would lose its purpose. Please leave. Wait. Boundless C was about to send them off when Chung Haonan hurriedly said, Chief Escort C, please wait. We want you to arrange an opponent for us. It's none other than the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Heaven's Equal Escort Agency? Boundless C's movements paused. These were the words he didn't want to hear the most. When he thought of how badly he had suffered, he couldn't help but be furious. That's right. The one we want to deal with the most is Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's Ling E. Chief Escort C, you've also suffered at his hands before. I'm sure you hate him to the bone. We can work together. Chung Haonan quickly said. He saw Ling E as a thorn in his side. In order to deal with Ling E and avenge his son, he was willing to pay any price. If he missed this opportunity, it would be too late for regrets. Oh, Boundless C slowly put the teacup back down. He didn't continue to chase them away. Instead, he fell into deep thought. As expected, there's a chance. Long Kiba and the others looked at each other. Their spirits rose and their hearts settled. Tell me, why do you want to deal with Ling E? Boundless C's fingers drummed rhythmically on the table as he looked up at the three. If it weren't for Chung Haonan's words, he would definitely have chased them away. After all, the 4C's escort agency's name was still there. If these people didn't keep their mouths shut and spoke carelessly, it would be easy for them to cause trouble. Even if it was just for his image, Boundless C had to maintain his impartiality. However, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and Ling E were two different matters. Chung Haonan was right. He hated Ling E to the bone. The 4C's escort agency had fallen from being the overlord of the escort agencies that was at its zenith to its current state of being overshadowed. It was ranked third on the scoreboard, almost falling out of the top 5. This was the main culprit behind all of this. It was Ling E. It would not be an exaggeration to say that out of the 670 points that the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had obtained, at least 500 points had come directly from Ling E. This person's ability was so abnormal that it could not be viewed with common sense. After suffering at his hands twice in a row, even Boundless C had to admit that as long as Ling 1 was there, the chances of his 4C's escort agency turning the tables were minuscule. But now, a hired thug had delivered himself to his doorstep. He didn't mind adding fuel to the fire and killing with a borrowed knife. During the day, Boundless C had seen the conflict between Long Kiba and Ling E. Therefore, they believed that they had the foundation to become allies. However, before that, they had to first figure out the specific situation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like using a borrowed knife to kill someone. Instead, he had become a knife in the other party's hand. Chief Escort High, you might not know this, but our Dragon Boat Escort Agency and the Poison Eye Mercenary Group are located in the same city as their Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. We've always been incompatible like fire and water. It's not the first time we've fought and killed each other. Long Kiba hurriedly explained. There can't be two tigers on one mountain. Boundless C raised his eyelids. This wasn't strange at all. People of the same trade were enemies. With two escort agencies squeezed together, it would be strange if they could get along. As for the Poison I'm mercenary group, there was an unwritten rule in the South Continent seas. All the so-called mercenary groups were actually the original pirate groups that had been whitewashed. Therefore, there was usually a blood feud between them and the local escort agencies. It was normal for them to be like fire and water. Not only that, my only son, Chin Tian, died in the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. He was killed by this Ling one. Chief Escort Hai, tell me, how could I let this bastard go? Chung Haonan added, gnashing his teeth. Oh, there's such a thing? Boundless Sea was moved. The hatred of his son's death was absolutely irreconcilable. Looking at Chung Haonan's expression, he wouldn't joke about this. Chief Escort Hai, in front of me, I don't dare to lie. Therefore, in order to avenge my son's death, I beg Chief Escort Hai to open the door of convenience and let me kill my enemy. This Chung will be eternally grateful. Chung Haonan was a smart person. He no longer talked about the hatred between the Four Seas Escort Agency and Ling One. Instead, he shifted the blame to himself. Your request is reasonable. Boundless Sea's expression was unfathomable. Long Kiba and the others thought he was going to agree and were overjoyed. They didn't expect him to suddenly change the topic. However, although our Four Seas Escort Agency suffered some losses in the Grand Meeting, this doesn't mean that we have to take revenge privately. It's taboo to destroy the public for personal reasons. The fairness of the Southern Continent Escort Agency's Grand Meeting will not be destroyed in my hands. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. This dignified official reply left Long Kiba and the others dumbstruck. They couldn't help but look at each other. Wasn't this change a little too quick? Seeing that Boundless Sea was still speaking righteously and didn't seem like he was faking it, the three felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. They were immediately disappointed. Their little row already had the resolve to be the knife. They took the initiative to let the other side borrow the knife to kill them, but the other side didn't accept the knife. How are they supposed to play? Looking at the Southern Continent Escort Agency's Grand Meeting, only the 5 judges from the 5 Great Escort Agency had the opportunity to play tricks in the open. The others were far from qualified. Unfortunately, Chung Haonan and Wu Bao Liang, these 2 amateurs, didn't need to be said. Even Long Kiba himself, because the Dragon Boat Escort Agency had always been weak, couldn't climb up to the higher branches of the 5 Great Escort Agency. Now that he finally had the chance to use Ling One, a common enemy, to ask for Boundless Sea's help, he didn't expect to hit a wall. Things had already reached this point. Staying any longer would only make a fool of themselves. Long Kiba and the others looked at each other and could only salute Boundless Sea with flagging interest. If that's the case, then we won't disturb Chief Escort Sea any longer. We'll take our leave now. Wait. Boundless Sea suddenly stopped them. For the sake of justice, I definitely won't use my position to avenge a private grudge. However, seeing that you have a blood feud with me, this matter is pardonable. I can agree to help you secretly, but I can't be too biased. Do you understand? Chapter 44-43. As long as we can think of a way for our Dragon Boat Escort Agency to fight against their Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, it would be best if we can challenge Ling Yi. That way, we can guarantee that he will die a horrible death. Chung Haonan said impatiently. Is that true? Boundless Sea was stunned. Although he had never seen Ling Yi in action, he had been in close contact with him. Moreover, as the chief escort of the #1 escort agency in South Continent, his judgment of people was far sharper than that of ordinary people. Even if he did not know how strong Ling Yi was, he could at least see that this person was not easy to deal with. If he, the chief escort, personally fought, it would not be a problem. However, the problem was that the strength of the South Continent's escort agency had to be limited to the Golden Core stage. Experts above the nascent Soul stage were not allowed to participate. This was the biggest problem. That's right. Our military advisor is an eccentric person who specializes in practicing a unique skill. Although his strength is suppressed to the golden core, great perfection. His true strength is not even a middle stage nascent soul stage's opponent. He is our trump card. There is no need to use him in the previous few matches, but the finals are coming up, so there is no need to hide anymore. As long as we arrange for Ling Yi to fight against our military advisor, that kid will definitely die. Chung Haonan pushed out the silent Wu Baoyang. Oh, Your Excellency is so amazing? Boundless C suddenly became interested and looked at Wu Baoyang for the first time. In the South Continent C, the strength of a middle stage nascent soul stage was already considered powerful. They could basically do whatever they wanted. However, an expert in the golden core great perfection had the strength of a middle stage nascent soul stage. This was more than just rare. There was probably no such eccentric person in the entire Heaven Stage Island. With such strength, he was an invincible existence in the golden core stage. No matter how strong Ling Yi was, he could not be a match for such an eccentric person. You flatter me. It's just that my cultivation method is a little special. I can use a secret method to suppress my strength on the surface. Wu Baoyang pretended to be humble and cupped his hands. However, his pair of triangular yin and yang eyes could not hide the pride. This was actually a kind of helplessness, but he did not expect that it would come in handy now. Ever since North Island fled to South Continent, after getting to know the Chung family's father and son and joining the Poison mercenary group, Wu Baoyang had not broken through. Of course, this was only limited to the realm on the surface. In fact, his real strength had been advancing by leaps and bounds. Otherwise, how could he live up to the name of an evil cultivator? He did not do it on purpose, but it was because of his latest improved version of the evil technique. It was only effective for those in the gold core stage. Once he broke through to the nascent soul stage, it was not that he couldn't continue to cultivate, but if he wanted to continue dual cultivation with those women, he would have to suck them to death on the spot. The reason why he was exposed in the North Island, it was because of the disappearance and death of a large number of women that they had no choice but to flee to the South Continent. Although the South Continent Sea region was notoriously chaotic, it was inevitable that they would be discovered if they repeated the same trick. If that was the case, even with the protection of the Poison mercenary group, they wouldn't be able to survive. He could not stay in the South Continent for long. Chaos was chaos, but no place would openly tolerate the existence of evil cultivators. Even the seas of the South Continent were no exception. As a result, whether it was Wu Baoyang, Chung Haonan, or even Chung Ketian who had already died to the divine nun of the East Sea, they all used a special secret technique to suppress their cultivation. Currently, their strength remained at the great perfection of golden core, but their true strength had already surpassed regular nascent soul cultivators. Wu Baoyang's strength had reached the peak of early nascent soul long ago, and with the power of his evil technique, he could still easily defeat opponents at higher cultivation levels than him, even if it was measured in terms of cultivation. In other words, regular mid-nascent soul cultivators were nowhere near Wu Baoyang's opponent, let alone mere golden core cultivators. As for Chung Haonan, the captain of the Poison mercenaries, he also practiced the evil technique that Wu Baoyang had developed and improved. Coupled with his powerful foundation from before, his strength was even greater than Wu Baoyang's. He could easily kill regular peak, mid-nascent soul cultivators instantly. Special cultivation method. Boundless C rolled his eyes and immediately burst into laughter as he exposed them. An evil technique is an evil technique. You're being so secretive in front of me. Is this the attitude you have when you're asking for help? This. Wu Baoyang was immediately alarmed. Chung Haonan and Long Kiba's eyes were filled with unconcealable fear as well. They all looked at Boundless C cautiously, as if they were facing a great enemy. No matter where evil cultivators went, they would definitely be hated by everyone, which was why they would beat around the bush and use the excuse of special technique. However, they never thought Boundless C would still see through it with a single glance. What were they to do? In the waters of the southern continent, The major escort agencies were undoubtedly the representatives of the righteous. As the saying goes, good and evil cannot coexist. If Boundless Sea really wanted to capture them, it would be a great contribution to the people. If news of this spread, the Four Seas escort agency's reputation would definitely soar. It was very likely that they would snatch the limelight back from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and change their previous decline. Thinking of this, the three could not help but break out in cold sweat. They were so focused on getting Boundless Sea's help that they forgot this fatal flaw. This was the headquarters of the Four Seas Escort Agency, where experts would definitely gather. If Boundless Sea really wanted to capture them, the three of them would not even have a chance to escape. This time, they were in big trouble. Long Kiba was slightly better, but at this moment, Chung Haonan and Wu Bao Liang felt as if their hearts had fallen into an ice cellar. In their opinion, Boundless Sea was definitely a person who only cared about profit. If killing them was a great benefit to him, he would not let go of this opportunity. However, the situation was different from what Wu Bao Liang and the others had imagined. Boundless Sea did not immediately make a move. Instead, he looked at the three of them from head to toe and suddenly asked with an unfathomable expression, "How strong is that Ling Yi?" HM? The three of them, who were on high alert, could not help but be stunned. They felt a little strange, but Wu Bao Yang instantly reacted and quickly replied, "Very strong. On the surface, he looks like he is in the Golden Core stage. But our Poison Eye mercenary group's Old Kong is an expert at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul stage. Now, he has been crippled by him. Many people in Weiwan City know about this, so it is not difficult to verify." "So troublesome?" Boundless Sea looked at him suspiciously and pinched his chin with one hand. After pondering for a moment, he said, "All right, I can arrange an opportunity for you to deal with Ling." "Thank you, Chief Escort C." Wu Bao Yang was immediately overjoyed, and he let out a sigh of relief. Fuck, the situation just now was too dangerous. He went around the gates of hell. If he was not careful, he would have died here today. Fortunately, his reaction was fast enough. If you like this work, you are welcome to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote at Starting Point. Your support is my greatest motivation. For mobile users, please go to M. Chapter 44-44. Chung Haonan and Long Kiba were stunned for a moment. Only then did they realize what was going on. They secretly gave Wu Bao Liang a thumbs up. If it wasn't for his timely answer, they would have been dead on the spot. It was obvious that Boundless Sea had wanted to kill them. After all, killing a few evil cultivators could make his Four Seas escort agency famous. There was no reason not to do such a good thing. On the other hand, Boundless Sea didn't want to let go of the opportunity to deal with Ling Yi, so he suddenly asked. If Ling Yi was easy to deal with, and his subordinates could deal with him, then he wouldn't need Wu Bao Liang and the others to kill the evil cultivator. However, if Ling Yi wasn't easy to deal with, and his subordinates couldn't deal with him, then he would need to weigh the pros and cons. Fortunately, Wu Bao Yang's reaction was fast enough, and his answer was witty enough, so they were able to escape. Boundless Sea didn't make a decision that was disadvantageous to them. The reason was simple. If Ling Yi could cripple a peak early-stage nascent soul expert, then a normal golden core expert wouldn't be able to deal with him. At least, they wouldn't have a 100% chance of winning. So if Boundless Sea wanted to deal with Ling Yi, he could only borrow Wu Bao Yang's hand. This way, he wouldn't be disadvantageous to them. In the end, the hatred for Ling Yi surpassed the benefits of killing the evil cultivator. Boundless Sea's decision allowed Wu Bao Liang and the others to escape. I wonder what Chief Escort High's arrangements are. As soon as the crisis was averted, Chung Haonan hurriedly asked impatiently. Tomorrow is the last round of the competition. The content isn't much different from the past. The entire day will be a challenge, Boundless Sea revealed. Oh, then Chief Escort C, what are the rules of this challenge? Long Kiba asked. It wasn't just to deal with Ling Yi. He wanted to know the rules of the competition in advance, even if it was just one night earlier. It would also allow him to prepare more carefully which would affect the final score. The fifth round of the competition is called the Escort Agency Free Challenge. Boundless C looked at the 3 and didn't hide it. It didn't affect him anyway, so it didn't matter if the 3 knew beforehand. At that time, each escort agency will have 2 chances to challenge other escort agencies. At the same time, they will also have 2 chances to fight. The bet for each match is 100 points. The winner gets 100 points. The loser loses 100 points. The stakes are so high. Long Kiba's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that. If he won all 4 matches, he would be able to obtain a total of 400 points. Especially if the points were plundered from the opponents, the difference would be even greater when the points were added together. Even though the equal of Heaven Escort Agency was currently outshining the rest of the pack, with a huge gap of 400 points between them and the second-place team, if they played their cards right in the 5th round of the competition, even the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, which only had 110 points, would be able to win. It was not impossible to surpass it. That's right. The previous round were just small skirmishes. The last round is the real highlight. This has always been the rule of the South Continent's Escort Agency Grand Gathering. That's why you can use this opportunity to challenge the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. Boundless C nodded. Challenging the Equal Heaven Escort Agency is not a problem. However, what if Ling Yi refuses to accept the challenge? Chung Haonan and the others looked at each other worriedly. That was very likely to happen. Just like in the first round, Ling Yi did not personally participate. If it was the same tomorrow, Ling Yi would not be able to participate. If it was the same tomorrow, even if they could steal points from the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, they would not be able to take the opportunity to kill Ling Yi. That would be too regretful. Don't be in such a hurry. What I just said were the original rules of the competition. However, in order to deal with Ling Yi, I can think of a way to add a special rule. Boundless C smiled mysteriously. Oh, what do you think, Chief Escort C? Chung Haonan and the others cooperated and asked. I've already had people investigate beforehand. That Ling Yi's status in the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency is that of an honorary escort head. That's why, in addition to the regular competition, I can add an escort agency head challenge. Boundless C narrowed his eyes and sneered. An escort agency head challenge. Chung Haonan and the others were stunned. They did not understand what he meant. It's very simple. The rules of this additional challenge are that all participants can directly challenge the Golden Core Stage upper echelons of each escort agency, including the head escort, deputy escort head, and honorary escort head. Moreover, they can challenge them an unlimited number of times. The escort agency cannot refuse the challenge. After saying this, Boundless C could not hide his delight as he took a sip of the high-quality spiritual tea. Chung Haonan, Wu Baoyong, and Long Kiba digested this for a while before they finally understood the huge advantage this special rule brought them. That's great. Chief Escort C, this special rule is practically tailor-made for us. It's very practical. Long Kiba was overjoyed. Then Chief Escort C, when the time comes, as long as we challenge the upper echelons of the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency, Ling Yi will have to accept the challenge. Chung Haonan and Wu Baoyong were also overjoyed. Of course. Otherwise, wouldn't my special rule be for nothing? Boundless C smiled coldly. Unless the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency forfeits and is willing to be removed from the Southern Continent Escort Agency Alliance, they will have to follow the rules. Haha, that's right. Chief Escort C is mighty. Chung Haonan and the others laughed in agreement. Coming to the 4 C's escort agency was the right decision. Even though there was a slight risk if they hadn't come, how could they have had such a good opportunity to deal with Ling Yi? With just Chung Haonan and the others' abilities, they might not have had a chance to deal with Ling Yi until the end of the conference. However, things were different in Boundless C's hands. He was the chief escort of the 4 C's escort agency, the head of the 5 judges of the conference, and the one who set the rules of the game. If he wanted to do something to someone, it was too easy. Moreover, he would say it in a dignified manner. Even if the others were dissatisfied, they couldn't object. Status determined everything. This saying was not false at all. However, what if when the time comes, when we challenge the equal of Heaven Escort Agency's upper echelons, Ling Yi still refuses to accept the challenge and send someone else to fight? Long Kiba was still a little worried. Even if Boundless Sea's special rule was passed, the Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference was a competition between the 32 escort agencies. It wasn't just a display of one person's strength. No matter what competition it was, the premise was that the escort agency was participating. In other words, if Wu Baoyang really wanted to issue a challenge, he could at most challenge the upper echelons of the equal of Heaven Escort Agency. It was unlikely that he would directly challenge Ling Yi. Otherwise, it would become purely a personal grudge. Where would the dignity of the Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference go? Chapter 44-45. Even Boundless Sea wouldn't dare to be so brazen. He kept saying that he wanted to maintain fairness and impartiality. Not to mention, South Continent's Escort Agency Gala wasn't just his word. There were 4 other judges, and Qi Mingyuan was one of them. When the time came, he would definitely stand up and object. This might be a little troublesome, but it's not a big problem. From what I know, among the higher-ups of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, only Qi Wenhan and Ling Yi are in the Golden Core stage. The others aren't, so if you challenge them, it'll be either Qi Wenhan or Ling. Boundless Sea smiled. After suffering such a huge loss at Ling Yi's hands, he had done a lot of homework on the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. It could be said that he knew everything about the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Only these two, and it's easy to deal with them. Qi Wenhan is the young master in charge of the agency's affairs. He can't go himself, so the only one left is Ling Yi. Long Kiba immediately became happy. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. As an old rival of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, he didn't know as much as Boundless Sea. Boundless Sea was indeed worthy of being the overlord of South Continent's escort agencies. Even if Qi Wenhan goes himself, it doesn't matter. At worst, we'll beat him to the ground and force Ling Yi out. Wu Baoyang said arrogantly. Qi Wenhan and the likes were not in his eyes at all. Even Ling Yi, who had crippled Old Kong, he had never truly taken him to heart. Originally, he had only wanted to take revenge for Cheng Qitian, but today, Cheng Qitian had offended him, so he had no choice but to kill him. WWWW. Thinking of tomorrow's situation, Cheng Haonan and the others couldn't help but laugh at each other, as if they had won a great battle. Cheng Haonan did it for revenge, Wu Baoyang did it to vent his anger, and Long Kiba did it for the rise of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. As long as they followed the script, there was a 90% chance that their plan would succeed. Maybe even more. This is all I can do to help you guys. Make good use of this opportunity. Don't let me down, Boundless Sea said with a smile. Don't worry, Chief Escort High. As long as we follow the plan, Ling Yi will definitely die. The Heavens Equal Escort Agency won't be able to be proud for long. Long Kiba and the other two nodded in unison and said, "It's getting late, so we'll be taking our leave. Chief Escort High, just wait for a good show tomorrow." "All right, take care. I won't send you off." Boundless Sea smiled as he saw the 3 of them off. Seeing the 3 of them leave, his lips suddenly curved into a mocking smile. A bunch of country bumpkins. Indeed, this special rule of the escort agency's Helmsman Challenge was something he had only thought of after seeing Cheng Haonan and the other 2. At first glance, this special rule seemed to only target the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Ling Yi. The biggest beneficiary was the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. This was because Wu Baoyang's strength was only at the Golden Core stage on the surface, but his actual strength was enough to fight against a nascent Soul Stage expert. It would be difficult for other escort agencies to find a second one like him. In a competition where only Golden Core experts could participate, this fellow was undoubtedly an undefeatable killing machine. It would be difficult for other escort agencies to contend against him. Under such circumstances, naturally, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would have the last laugh. Not only would they be able to trample the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency under their feet, but they would also be able to use this opportunity to rise to the top. It was not impossible for them to surpass the traditional wealthy families like the Four Seas Escort Agency. However, what kind of person was Boundless Sea? He was someone who had single-handedly managed the Four Seas Escort Agency to become the overlord of the Southern Continent's escort agencies. How could he be so stupid as to work for someone else? Especially when the three of them were strangers, and they were obviously up to no good. Whether it was Chung Haonan, Wu Bao Liang, or Long Kiba, none of them could be considered stupid. However, when these three were placed together with Boundless Sea, they were really just people who were still counting the money after being sold. Their schemes were not on the same level. The reason why he had proposed this special rule was naturally to deal with Ling Yi and achieve his goal of killing with a borrowed knife. On the other hand, it was to clear the obstacles for his own Four Seas Escort Agency. According to the results of the previous Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Meetings, the strongest was undoubtedly the Four Seas Escort Agency. Especially since they were fighting on their home ground this time, Boundless Sea had long since thought that the #1 throne was already in his grasp. However, Boundless Sea had never expected that from the start of the second round, the competition would suddenly break out of his control and even develop into such an awkward situation. Seeing that the last round of the competition was about to begin, it was obvious that he had no choice but to use some fierce medicine. In the end, Chung Haonan and the other two just happened to come up. In Boundless Sea's eyes, these three people from the Dragon Boat Escort Agency might be clowns, but they were still a ready-made, sharp knife. Not only could they kill Lin Yi, they could also take down the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, which had suddenly emerged as a new force. And once the Super Dark Horse Heaven's Equal Escort Agency was gone, which of the remaining escort agencies could be a match for his Four Seas Escort Agency? As for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, when the time came, they would swallow up a large amount of points from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, even if they became the new Super Dark Horse for a short period of time. So what? Boundless Sea wasn't worried about this at all. If it really came to that, all he needed to do was expose Wu Bao Liang's identity as an evil cultivator, and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would immediately collapse, let alone become the new overlord of the escort agencies. It was unknown whether or not the Dragon Boat Escort Agency could survive the encirclement of all the other escort agencies. After all, escort agencies were publicly recognized as a righteous faction in the South Continent. Which righteous faction would treat an evil cultivator as their trump card? If that wasn't seeking death, then what was? Therefore, no matter what, Boundless Sea felt that he was in an invincible position. As for Chung Haonan and the other two, they were really just pitiful worms that he had sold out and were still counting the money, for the night passed uneventfully. When the sun rose on the second day, Magic Cold Plaza was once again filled with people. The number of people who came from all directions to watch was clearly more than double that of the previous 2 days. Everyone knew that today was the last round of the competition. Who would have the last laugh and become the new overlord of the escort agencies? The mystery would be revealed today. This time, as usual, Boundless Sea appeared and announced the rules of this round to everyone. There weren't many areas that could be changed in the last round of the competition. The judges had already discussed it long ago. Even the spectators, as long as they had a deeper understanding of the South Continent's escort agencies, could roughly guess what was going to happen. However, there were still some people among the people in charge of the escort agencies who raised their doubts. They weren't like the others who were here to watch the show. They had to thoroughly understand the rules of the competition and couldn't make any mistakes. Otherwise, the entire escort agency would be at a disadvantage. Chief Escort High, since every escort agency only has 2 rights to challenge and 2 rights to be challenged, can we reject the opponent when we're being challenged? Chapter 44-46. One person stood up and asked. Another person also asked in a loud voice, "Also, everyone knows that you have to pick the weakest persimmon. What if everyone picks the same opponent and there's a conflict? It's simple. If an escort agency is being challenged, they can't refuse the challenge until they've used up their 2 challenge rights. If more than one agency challenges one agency at the same time, then the agency being challenged can pick the opponent. Boundless Sea replied. With that said, everyone no longer had any doubts. Instead, their faces were filled with wariness. At the same time, they were secretly sizing up the other escort agencies, calculating their next course of action in their hearts. In this final round, the strength of the agency was important, but there was one more important thing: picking the opponent. This was the key to victory. There was no room for negligence. Just as everyone was rubbing their palms together, thinking that the match was about to begin, Boundless Sea suddenly added another rule. It was the same rule he had mentioned to Chung Haonan and the others last night. While everyone was busy digesting this new rule, the 4 referees sitting on the high platform were confused and puzzled. This challenge rule wasn't part of the discussion. They hadn't even heard of it. They hadn't expected Boundless Sea to suddenly do this. He was clearly going to act first and report later. With this, everyone thought that this was the result of the referee's discussion. If they stood up and questioned it, not only would they be publicly slapping their faces, they would also offend Boundless Sea and the 4 Seas escort agency. They might even have to bear the consequences. If the competition went out of control because of this, no one could take the risk. Thinking of this, Zhao Bufan and the others had ugly expressions, but they endured it. After all, this additional challenge rule didn't really hurt them. Instead, it might be an opportunity. Apart from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, the other 5 major escort agencies, including the 4 Seas Escort Agency, did not have any golden core stage executives at all. They were all traditional wealthy families, and a golden core stage of strength could only be considered average among the escort agencies, perhaps even below average. If they could not even convince the masses, how could they possibly become executives like the head of an escort agency? As a result, with Boundless Sea's new challenge rule, as long as they weren't stupid, there was no chance of them losing points. On the contrary, if he could find a pushover, he would be able to earn some extra points. In other words, he would be the beneficiary right from the start, so why not? Among the crowd, only Qi Mingyuan's expression changed when he heard this. The other 5 major escort agencies did not have any golden core cultivators, but his Heaven's Equal Escort Agency did. Boundless Sea suddenly did this. Qi Mingyuan would be too slow if he couldn't even smell a conspiracy. In fact, the first thought that popped up in his mind was that this was a plot against the equal of Heaven Escort Agency. It would be fine if the number of challenges was directly limited. But the problem was that Boundless Sea had clearly said that any participant could issue a challenge. There was no limit to the number of times. His intentions were sinister. It was obvious. Qi Wenhan and Lin Yi were the only 2 people in the equal of Heaven Escort Agency who could accept the challenge, even with their strength. Given their strength, there shouldn't be many who could match them in the Golden Core stage. But even a tiger couldn't stand up to a pack of wolves. Their chi would eventually run out. They were confident in winning the first 2 or 3 matches. But what about after that? Unlimited challenges. If they really did it this way, as long as these 2 people were exhausted, the other escort agencies that were eyeing them covetously could challenge them endlessly until the end of the conference. It wouldn't matter if they fought for an entire day. As long as they didn't kill both of them, the other escort agencies could continue to challenge them and grind points on them. No matter how big the equal of Heaven Escort Agency's previous advantage was, this little bit of points wouldn't be enough to compensate them. If Qi Mingyuan on stage could think of this, then Qi Wenhan would naturally be able to think of it as well. Furthermore, he was 100% sure that this plot was not directed at him, but at Ling Yi. The tallest tree in the forest was the first to be destroyed by the wind. Previously, Ling Yi had been in the limelight completely by relying on his own strength to turn the equal of Heaven Escort Agency into a super dark horse and trample the 4 Seas Escort Agency underfoot. Boundless Sea had long since flown into a rage out of humiliation. Now that he's suddenly made this move, who else could it be other than Ling Yi? This guy says that he's fair and just, but this challenge rule is clearly aimed at us. He wants to use a tag team battle to tire us out. Since we can't win fair and square, he's using this kind of underhanded method. Too sinister. Qi Wenhan couldn't help but grit his teeth. Qi Wenhan didn't know that in the other side's eyes, there wasn't even a need for a tag team battle. Wu Baoyang alone was enough to take care of him and Ling. As long as one of them was left alive, they could grind points however they wanted. No one could stop them. Looking at the judge's expressions, this rule was probably added by Boundless Sea himself. This guy's a bit too unscrupulous. Lin, he couldn't help but frown. Disregarding everything else, this was filled with the smell of a conspiracy. The feeling of being maliciously targeted really didn't sit well with him. Yeah, such a big thing. Why didn't old dad say anything? Qi Wenhan muttered. Before he finished speaking, Qi Mingyuan suddenly stood up on the stage. He was one of the 5 judges, after all. Facing such a malicious rule, how could he not retaliate? He, Qi Mingyuan, wasn't a turtle hiding in its shell. Head escort high. This challenge rule for the head of an escort agency seems to be incomplete. It needs to be amended, Qi Mingyuan said after clearing his throat. The entire crowd was in an uproar. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. In the past, the ones who had asked this question were the people in charge of the escort agencies. Why was it Qi Mingyuan's turn this time? He was one of the people who had set the rules. There was no way he didn't know, right? For a moment, everyone's gazes turned thoughtful. The smart ones had already realized that there was something fishy about this. Oh, what do you think, head escort Qi? Boundless Sea raised his eyebrows. He was sure that Qi Mingyuan wouldn't be willing to suffer a loss. He would definitely retaliate. However, he had already prepared an excuse, so he wasn't worried at all. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.